So that's coming up. Start public participation.
All right.
Catching up with a big crowd.
Yeah, I might have inspired.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, on the
I'll
back.
say what I should have
You did okay.
said. Did the best I could at the time, but it wasn't good enough.
No, it's never good enough.
Well, you know something, make it short and sweet, don't dwell on it.
He said he was supposed to be putting it out on Monday, and I never got it.
No, I didn't do it. You didn't post it. Send them down to the D side. Oh, Bob didn't sign them yet.
Let me have it.
Did I miss one?
Oh, yeah, well, let him, he's supposed to sign them first anyway. Well, you know, if he doesn't approve it, it ain't good.
Well, I know,
I'm
but
not
these three
signing it.
signatures, so what difference does it make? There's a lot of people here tonight.
Oh, probably. We must have done something. I see a lot of Democrats.
How come they don't have handkerchiefs?
That's all bullshit.
Right.
You know, the part I hate is all these clowns that are protesting and not voters and they're not even citizens. They got no business messing with the Democratic process in this country. Pass it down. Yeah, well, it's okay. I'll sign the letter. Okay, this is I'd just like to see where they're going. I don't think three Republicans should sign them. Makes them take part in that.
We can move over.
Just trying to get the job.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Tuesday, November 15th, 2016. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first thing we'll do is approve the agenda. I'd like to add an agenda item. I'd like to add discuss and approve the grant for rehabilitation of the Melrose Bridge. And I'd also like to move both, and I'll call it 11E. And I'd like to move both 11E, the Melrose Bridge, and 11A, presentation by the American Heritage River Commission, to the first business item, just ahead of unfinished business 10A. Are there any other additional agenda items? Jason?
I have a resolution that I'd like to add to the agenda condemning the behavior this weekend at the gravel pits.
Okay. You want to add
I'll add that as agenda F, please.
11F? Okay. Any additional changes to the agenda?
Okay, motion the agenda is approved as amended.
Second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Attendance, everybody's in attendance. Parliamentary procedure, this is what we usually say. Do not interrupt the person who has the floor, and the way you obtain the floor is to be recognized by the chair. I'd entertain him. Jason?
On the point of parliamentary procedures, rather than just say that we need to wait to be called on. The Board of Finance has an item in their agenda for tomorrow night's meeting that actually is a primer on the most commonly used motions in parliamentary procedure, whether or not they're debatable, whether or not it requires a 2/3 majority or a simple majority. That would be probably worth our time to have here, and then we could just refer to that.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 1st, 2016.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of November 1st, 2016 Selectmen's meeting.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
There were no attachments online.
Nope.
Okay.
I sent all the attachments to Dale.
I didn't say
Not to
that.
Dale, excuse
To
me, to
Amanda.
Amanda.
Yeah,
Okay.
you need them, Paul?
Amanda had said that she was going to send them out to us on Monday, but I looked for them even before I came and I didn't see them.
Okay. Well, we'll get them out there tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, communication. I have some communication. And it's from Mark Simmons of the Ethics Commission. And he says, "Hi Bob, thanks for the note. To accommodate everyone's schedule meeting, the meeting has been tentatively scheduled for January 3rd, 2017. I have not officially posted this meeting with the town clerk yet, so this is a tentative schedule for the Ethics Commission." Any further communication? Okay, and now, before we start public participation, I'd like to read something that I wrote. And what I want to say is, over the last 2 days, I received a lot of criticism regarding what I said to the press after viewing the video of the bonfire and the racist behavior that occurred in East Windsor. And I'd like to apologize for the words that I used to the press. I did not express myself well. East Windsor is a small community filled with good, caring people. I and we must stand in opposition to any display of bigotry, hatred, prejudice. I feel if one does not take a strong stand against racism and bigotry, then one is tacitly condoning it. I should have taken a stronger stand and condemning the behavior I observed, and I will do that in the future. Having said that, I will entertain public participation. Is there any public participation? Actually, excuse me, Dick has something.
I have my hand up. No, we're not cutting you off, Rich. Under public participation, it's time the public participates. Person that always sits in the seat in the second row back next to Rebecca had a procedure this morning. He's doing fine. There's a get well card for him. Any of you that wish to are free to sign it. It's Tom Talamini. Some people, I don't know if you're interested. Just sign it and get it back up to me, please.
Okay, Rich.
Appreciating the remarks you made, Mr. First Selectman, the Democratic Town Committee met and adopted a resolution which I'd like to offer before the Board of Selectmen. Whereas there has been a recent gathering in our community which demonstrated clearly racism and bigotry by a small group, and whereas our community is people of all races, classes, ages, religions, and orientations. And whereas we, the East Windsor Democratic Town Committee, affirm our commitment to oppose injustice and hatred in all its manifestations, and to affirm our commitment to respect the dignity and value of each person who resides in or visits our community. And whereas we believe that the whole community must stand together to condemn racism, bigotry, and intolerance from any and all who espouse such vile opinions. Be it therefore resolved that the East Windsor Democratic Town Committee hereby encourages our elected officials on the Board of Selectmen and all other organizations of prominence and influence within our community to forcefully condemn any gathering of racists and bigots within our community.
Thank you. I agree with you. Any selectmen want to say anything?
I agree with them.
Any further public participation?
Yeah,
Gil?
that pertains to this, I'll wait till second public participation to refer to what happened this weekend. But I will have a question probably answered by Mr. Bowser, either tonight or in the near future, as to what parliamentary procedures does the Board of Finance have to offer? And is it policy, which is, you are the policy makers, and is it something I should be in attendance for, just to find out what it's all about?
Yes.
So it's a cheat sheet for Robert's Rules of Orders that was included in the Board of Finance packet for tomorrow night's meeting. It's not any change from what's involved, or what's included in whatever the most recent version of Robert's Rules is. It's like 8 or 11 or something. It's just a primer to say what the most common ones are, what the appropriate use is for it, what the required percentage of members voting. For example, a motion to adjourn is a non-debatable motion. It specifies that out there. It's nothing other than a refresher for board members.
Okay, I'm glad I don't have to walk away uninformed. Thank you.
Okay, any further public participation? Yes.
Yes. So, wasn't able to make the last meeting. On the agenda, it's a discussion of the Warehouse Point District MOU memorandum.
Yes.
Okay, so that's actually from the Fire Protection Commission that Board of Selectmen appointed. The 9 of us met several times over 8 or 10 meetings. We observed, we saw different scenarios that could lay out. The 2 that came up were to create 1 fire district in the entire town, which ultimately was passed and approved by that commission and brought back to you. And I see it's on here, and I'm sure that's what that is.
Actually, it's not.
No, it's not.
What that is. We talked about that at the last meeting. I'm not sure if we made a motion to approve it or not.
Well, I guess that would be my request, that you act on that decision by that board that you appointed to either approve it, disapprove it, do something with it, because we're going to move on with this process.
I think in our discussion, we felt that the next move is for the Warehouse Point Fire District to accept the state statutes regarding fire districts. So we felt that, but I certainly think that we could approve it. It's not on the agenda though for tonight. So we could do it tomorrow, next meeting.
I'd like to try to slide it in there, at least talk about it. It's time is of the essence with this. You can flip it along, and then we can run out of time. Budget season, blah blah blah.
I believe to change it, once we have accepted the agenda, I think it would at least take a 2/3 vote to change it.
We did discuss buying into this. We didn't vote on it, but whether or not the Board of Selectmen felt that the recommendation was something that we should go with and put in place. We didn't actually vote on it, and I think that's what John is looking for.
Yes, yea or nay, and I'm okay with that. Ultimately, the decision lies with the voters of the town of East
Right.
Windsor. And I'm prepared for that, and we are prepared. Put it to the vote, with your blessing, without your blessing, but ask them if they want that type of fire protection, dedicated fire protection service. These are pretty dedicated, wonderful guys on both sides, and
Okay.
women.
All right.
Sorry, Christine.
I would entertain a motion to add it to the agenda as 11G.
I'll make that motion to add it to the agenda, item 11G.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that's not a 2/3 vote.
There's no reason, because it serves no purpose whatsoever,
But
whether
it-
we accept it or reject it.
But
It
it
makes no
makes
difference.
it makes the Board of Selectmen accountable for, you gave this team a charge, and now you're saying, well, it doesn't make any difference?
doesn't.
What the hell did I
Read
do,
the
waste all my
statutes.
time?
Okay.
Read the statutes.
Okay, Steve? Well,
No,
let's continue the vote. All those opposed? Okay, so we'll do it next week, our next meeting. We can't do it this meeting, I'm sorry. But we'll approve it next meeting. It'll be on the agenda.
No, we're gonna vote on it next
Vote on it next week.
Okay,
Get the Bob before the agenda if you want it on.
Further public participation. Steve?
Reference to the MOU discussion last week, it was about whether or not to keep the current taxation situation with warehouse point fire district as it currently stands, where the town is collecting the taxes on after the house point fire district.
Okay, thank
You
you.
would want to move, Bob, it was you that wanted to move forward with the vote. You said, should we vote on it?
Okay, we do have that on the
It's on the
agenda,
agenda,
MOU.
Steve.
Correct. But that's what it's.
That's when it should be brought up.
Further public participation. Jim?
Just a couple of quick comments on the Fire Protection Committee. It's my opinion that this board set up that committee to deliberate and solve the problem, come up with recommendations. So all you did last time was just accept the report, I guess.
Right.
If you do nothing, that's a waste of everybody's time. So personally, I think you should accept it and endorse it, because you gave these people a charge, 9 people, they wasted all their time, all those meetings, and they gave you a recommendation after an 8-to-1 vote, and you should endorse it. In terms of the MOU, I would urge you to, I guess there's some move to eliminate that, to get out of that, whatever. I would urge you not to change that. If you want to renegotiate the terms of that, that's fine, but I would urge you not to eliminate that agreement.
Okay. Further public participation?
I would urge you to kill it.
You have to raise your hand, we recognize.
Bob,
Jim?
Bob, this is all an agenda item. We take it up, we're not supposed to be doing this under public participation.
They can say what they want.
No, if it's an agenda item, and it's on the agenda, they're not supposed to be discussing it until that item comes up.
Well,
Can we discuss it at that time?
Of course.
I don't know.
Well, let them talk, I don't care.
Okay.
I'm going to
Jim.
work tomorrow morning, 7
Yeah.
o'clock.
Okay.
Point of order, point of order. If it's an agenda item and these people want to discuss it, they cannot discuss it while you're discussing the agenda item. So they could only discuss it in public participation.
It's the way the rules have always been, Gil.
Jim?
James Martin, 108 Main Street, Warehouse Point, side of town. By killing the MOU that's previously in place, this board is further hurting the taxpayers of Warehouse Point. Because the fire district's gonna have to hire a tax collector. They're gonna have to hire somebody else to send out the bills. Everything is gonna be duplicated to what your tax collector already does. So by squashing the MOU or killing it, you're further hurting the taxpayers of Warehouse Point. And it's a good deal for you guys to collect the taxes, if you think about it. You know, if you don't collect taxes, somebody doesn't pay their taxes, you lien the property and you get 18%. We gave that up to you. We pay you to do it for us. It's simple. It's very simple to figure that out. So, you know, just to kill it, you're going to further hurt taxpayers of Warehouse Point.
To point that out,
Steve, you haven't been recognized. And I want to respond to him. We are going to discuss the MOU, and I think all we're doing is, because the MOU says that we have to give 120 days notice, and I think it's more that we want to renegotiate it a little bit, maybe one or two items, so we're not, all we're doing is opening it up so we can negotiate it. We're not killing it at all. We have to,
Man, some people want to kill it, you
Well-
just heard it.
we're negotiating it. Steve?
Right now, the report is that we've started collecting the taxes since August 1, and there's still $4,800 behind in those collecting those taxes. So getting the 18% is taking an awfully long time.
Okay, thank you. Any additional public participation? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to boards, commission resignations and appointments.
I make a motion to appoint to the American Heritage River Commission Rebecca Talamini, who's that, for a term expiring 11/1/2020. Oh, that's you.
Is there a second?
Aye, second.
Any discussion? I'll have to say that I think she'll be a great asset to the American River Heritage Association, and I appreciate what she's doing on the 250th anniversary committee, chairman of that.
Well, she was down there getting wet the other day at the last workday.
There you go. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. And now, presentation by the American River Heritage. Come on down.
American Heritage River Commission, doing all our testing and stuff that we've been doing. This is basically an update and from the people from the college as to what they were doing, and they can probably answer any questions going.
We have to load it first, and then
Okay.
we know the computer system.
They
Second
got
part
a
is
little bit of a presentation there.
So Bob, I need to be done by 7:30, or we need to interrupt them.
Yeah. It may be a broken presentation.
So, maybe we could go on the next, what's the next
You
item?
want to do that, or you want to just let them, and we can finish it?
Yeah.
Well, just let them know, at 7:30, we gotta,
This thing takes
Recess.
the time to fire up. Thanks, Joe.
we could go into the original schoolhouse.
We could also do, why don't we do what I said goes with this, which is the discussion and approval of the rehabilitation of Melrose Bridge. That shouldn't take very long. Okay. So,
Who's making that presentation, Dick?
yeah, Dick, you want to?
You need to move that?
What do you mean?
That's, if you're going to change the agenda order, we need to move that.
Yeah,
We voted on that.
No, we voted to front load it, now we're skipping around again.
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Well, if we skip much longer, we won't have to worry about it.
All right, never mind, Dick.
They fall apart.
No pressure.
Dick?
While we have that little presentation to get going, the lady standing in the front is Dr. Martin. She is the person that's heading up this at the college. And the lady behind her is Joanne. And she's one of the students that was doing all the testing. So we got an overseer and we got a tester. And we got all our good results.
Well, while we're waiting, because I know your time is very precious, so we can talk to, and hopefully we'll be able to have the presentation since we put a lot of time. into this presentation, but we can talk about the results. First off, I want to thank you very much for inviting me and my students to come and talk about the results of past summer season's equali testing, and certainly very much appreciation to the town of East Windsor for supporting the good work. For those that are not aware, the town of East Windsor was actually the first town, and up until the end of the summer, the only town to step forward in the Scannick River watershed to support water testing, particularly equali. So that's kudos to all members of this town. Because of that great support, we are now have finished our second summer season. We began the testing in 2015 with 4 sites in the town of East Windsor, with a lot of help from the American Heritage River Commission, volunteers for collecting. And then this past summer, we expanded it to 5 sites based on the results from the 2015 season. So you may or may not be able to get in to see this, but the kind of interesting data that hopefully we'll be able to share with you is hot off the press. You actually will be the very first people to see the results of this past summer season. And then in a couple of months, we'll be producing the annual State of the Scannick report that gets sent to town people and posted on the American Heritage River Commission side. Yes?
Has the State of the Scannick report been issued before?
Every year.
Really?
Yes. Last year it was 176 pages long. This year it'll probably be even bigger, so it's taking me a little bit of time to get through publication of that. It keeps growing each year, which is wonderful, especially since you may not have been aware, but the state DEP has just designated the Scannick as a priority watershed in their new water monitoring plan, and the reason why it's on the priority watershed list is because of bacteria levels. So they're, yeah,
Okay, I think before we, let's discontinue now. So I would entertain a motion to recess the,
Make a motion to recess the Board of Selectmen's meeting to conduct a town meeting, at which time we will resume the Selectmen's meeting.
have a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Get set up. Fun moving this.
Lynn? Should move to recess, take maybe my second.
Yeah.
Is Lynn here?
His son is also Jim Barton. So that is Jim Barton. His father is
We didn't create it.
178.
One fire department, and the only
Got something to do or something? I don't know, let's just slide to the side. Seats are.
Where's Joanne?
We're not supposed to sit at the table. Unless you're the moderator.
Oh, Rick will go.
No problem. They hand it right back.
Mel?
Oh, you know what I forgot? Forgot my recorder.
We have a recorder here. Is that recorder going? Okay, so that.
It is, oh, okay, all right.
Can you do more than one file at a time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
have 3 resolutions for tonight, and I usually ask people to read them.
I'll tell you which one I want.
One for the Broadbrook School. Okay. I'll call the town meeting to order. Our first order of business is to elect a moderator. So do I have any nominations for a moderator? Paul?
Yes, I nominate Bob Maynard as moderator.
I second it.
Bob? Okay.
Move to close nominations.
Second it.
All right, and I'm the moderator.
Now you have to say,
Vote, I have to
all
vote.
in favor of closing nominations?
All those in favor of closing nominations?
Aye. All those in favor of Bob being moderator?
All those in favor of me being the moderator?
Aye.
Those opposed? Well, thank you, good. All right. The next order of business is for the acting town clerk to read the meeting notice.
Okay, Town of East Windsor, public town meeting notice. The legal voters of the Town of East Windsor are hereby warned that a town meeting will be held excuse me, at the Town Hall, 11 Rice Street, Broadbrook, Connecticut, on Tuesday, November 15th, 2016, at 7:30 p.m. for the following. Item number 1 is to consider and approve the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $37,000 for a 20-passenger bus for the senior center. Item 2 is to consider and approve the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $143,000 for window abatement for the Broadbrook School. This will fund the project 65%. The remaining funds should come from the Board of Education budget. And item number 3 is to consider and approve that pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 7-339C, the Town of East Windsor hereby delegates to its Board of Selectmen the authority to ratify or reject an interlocal agreement by and among the towns of East Windsor, Ellington, and Somers to jointly purchase one asphalt recycling unit, hot box, in accordance with the Connecticut Intertown Capital Equipment Incentive Program, and that nothing herein shall be deemed to diminish the power of the full Board of Selectmen to exercise its statutory powers, including the approval of agreements and the settlement and adjustments of claims against the town. Approved by the Board of Selectmen, Robert Maynard, for Selectmen.
Okay. Next order of business is for me to read who is eligible to vote. And this is just one sentence. It's my favorite sentence. It's a long sentence. It makes no sense, but I'll read it because that's what we do. At any town meeting other than a regular or special town meeting, town election, or any meeting, or any fire, sewer, school district, or any other municipal subdivision of any town incorporated by any special act, any person who is elector of such town may vote, and any citizen of the United States of age 18 years or more who jointly or severally is liable to the town, district, or subdivision for taxes assessed against him on an assessment of not less than $1,000 on the last completed grand list of such town, district, or subdivision, or who would be so liable if not entitled to an exemption under the Connecticut statute subdivision 17, 19, 22, 23, 25, 26, or section 1281 may vote unless restricted by provisions of any special act relating to such town, district, or subdivision. So there you have it. Now we'll entertain the motion. So the first item,
Okay. To consider and approve the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $37,000 for a 20-passenger bus for the senior center. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Second.
any discussion? Okay.
So, yeah, I'd like to know where the money's coming from. John Burnham, 178 Scannick Road.
The supplemental appropriation, so that'd be the fund balance.
Extra money the town has.
Money above the money necessary to support the town for approximately 2 months without any revenue. Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
I'm still pretty upset. Pretty upset about the treatment that the Warehouse Point side is taking. I'm having a little bit of trouble doing the right thing when the right thing's not being done to half the residents of the town of East Windsor.
Point of order, Bob, it's got nothing to do with a motion.
That is true.
on, John.
During the town meeting, we really have to discuss the business of the town meeting, and this is not the business of the town meeting. In public participation, in this, when we resume, you can do that.
Well, I guess the reason I said that is because the reason I'm going to vote no on every single one of these is just because of this. And it's really not my nature, but I'm just a little bit pathetic.
Okay. Further discussion? Jason?
Jason Bowser, 34 Rye Street. I would just question whether or not Mr. Burnham's comments actually were in line with what the motion was, because he was discussing the funding source. And that seems to be an appropriate, seems to me anyway, to be an appropriate line of question. Where the money's coming from and whether or not we should spend it are pretty relevant to the question on the floor.
I agree with you. I think I felt he went off topic after he brought that up.
That's possible.
Okay, further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 opposed.
And we have a handbook for everything.
Okay. Well, can we retake all those in favor? Okay, I don't think we have, it's obvious. Okay, item number 2.
To consider and approve the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $143,000 for window abatement for the Broadbrook School. This will fund the project 65%. The remaining funds should come from the Board of Education budget. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Second.
Discussion. Is there any discussion?
Can I get your name, please?
Kathy Simonelli?
Okay, hearing none?
I have something about
Sure.
it. Michael Walsh, 45 Dean Avenue. I have 2 questions. One would be, why wasn't this part of the rehabilitation and the whole Broadbrook School project? That's number 1. And number 2, why isn't it being completely funded by the Board of Education?
2 very good questions.
I can field the first one if you
Okay,
like.
go ahead.
The abatement itself.
Well, also, let me say, Sue, that Kathy's the chairman of the Board of Education, so.
Well, then that's who I wanted to talk to.
The Alliance grant that we received to do the renovation and to do the window replacement does not cover the abatement. So we have, in order to do the window replacement, we have to do the abatement, but the grant doesn't cover the abatement piece of it. It only covers the windows. And the board is not paying for that abatement because it is above and beyond our budget and we don't have that money available to us.
Okay, and the second question was, why is it only 65%? Or what was the
No, my second part of the question was, why wasn't it all being taken out of the Board of Education?
Yeah, and it's because their budget doesn't cover that. Okay.
A little comment on the motion. If we were to vote this down, you realize that we'll lose a $300,000 grant for the windows. That is funded by the state, but we have to fund the remediation in order for this process to go forward. And unfortunately, with time constraints such as they are, by the time you get it out to bid and everything, if you don't vote it basically now, we're going to lose the grant because it has to be done completely by June. That's it, drop dead. If it's not done, no money. That's why it was put on the agenda to get it done now.
Good point.
Kathy Bilodeau, 343 Scannick Road. I just want to thank you for saying that. That was something I was about to attempt to, and you did it perfectly. To lose over $300,000 that we already have available, has already been voted on to be used for this, would be an awful shame. And if I remember correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we were not aware originally that the abatement would not be included in the window removal, so that, I don't know.
Well, we put in for the window abatement as
And then
part
they
of the
denied
grant, and they denied that. It's just not covered under the grant.
Right.
Under the terms of the grant, they were not able to fund that.
The Broadbrook modular buildings.
And the other.
It's not part of the modular project,
Yeah.
it's part of a separate pocket of money that we were granted as part of an alliance district to do other capital improvements.
Okay.
The other thing is we've actually had at least one child who had leaned up against some of the windows that we would like to replace, and the backpack went right through the window. So we're talking about a serious safety concern, so we do appreciate that.
I think the windows have been there since 1950.
They need to be changed. It's really a significant safety concern, so we appreciate your support tonight.
Jim?
Jim Barton, 108 Main Street. 2 questions. Where is this money coming from?
Again, supplemental appropriation.
And again, how much money is in this account? Because we just spent $200,000.
There is over $1 million that's available.
Let's keep going then.
We will. Only one more at this town meeting. Further discussion. Rick?
What happens if it got, hypothetically, if it got voted down, what happens then?
Nothing,
You
basically.
lose the money, but somebody has to pay for it, so what happens then?
Well, you wouldn't lose the money, we lose the grant.
Yeah, we lose the money.
We lose the money the state has given us to replace the windows.
We lose
And
the
we
ability
have
to
old
replace the
windows.
windows.
Right. We have to get the money back.
Yeah. Further discussion.
We want to give the state $300,000 back.
Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 1, 2. Okay, we're getting better. But thank you. Motion passes. And finally, item number 3.
Number 3, to consider and approve that pursuant to Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-339C, the Town of East Windsor hereby delegates to its Board of Selectmen the authority to ratify or reject an interlocal agreement by and among the towns of East Windsor, Ellington, and Somers to jointly purchase 1 asphalt recycling unit, hot box, in accordance with the Connecticut Intertown Capital Equipment Incentive Program, and that nothing herein shall be deemed to diminish the power of the full Board of Selectmen to exercise its statutory powers, including the approval of agreements and the settlement and adjustments of claims against the town. I move the foregoing resolution be adopted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And Lenny, maybe you could tell us a little about this inter-town agreement with asphalt hot box.
We received a grant to buy a recycling hot box with the other 2 towns. We're going to get $65,000 for about an $80,000 piece of equipment. And the 3 towns are going to share the other 15 grand, whatever it is. So it's a heck of a deal. I believe the other two towns have already, well, I'm not sure about Summers, but I know Ellington has already had their meeting. So I'm not looking for any money from anybody. We're just, I have the money in my equipment budget to purchase it, my $7,000 worth, whatever. So it's just a matter of the powers to be thought that the town needed to ratify the actual agreement.
I think the state statute required that. If we have intertown agreements, it has to be approved by the governing body of the town, which is the town council.
I would ask, Mr. Chairman, if I could, ask Lenny, what does that equipment do? Is that the resurfacing of the road as it melted like we had?
No. This is a piece of equipment that will actually heat up it'll heat up new asphalt too and keep it hot. But it will also take the milling pile that we have and throw old curbing in it, add a little bit of emulsion to it. There's an auger in here. It makes fresh, new hot asphalt, which we can fill potholes, number one, in the winter with hot asphalt instead of cold patch, which will last much longer. The cold patch just comes out immediately. The piece will be, it'll be stored in Ellington. They're the lead town. We will go pick it up when we need it. Summers will pick it up when they need it. And we will share the maintenance on it, basically birds.
Jim?
Is that grant only available if you share it with?
Yes, it was a yes.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Now entertain a motion.
Adjourn.
All right. Second? All's in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll put.
Right on the wall there. Right on
Just hit it. And that. Don't show red.
Show red. Okay. Video will go off then too?
No, video will go off.
You can't record in just like you can't take minutes. What do you want?
Are you listening to JI tonight?
Put something funny.
No, I didn't look at the GI.
The transition's about our transition program? It is.
Great program.
Okay, I'll
I'll give this back to you.
call the Board of Selectmen back into order. And you can have the presentation.
We will make it short. See all these numbers? I know, I'm gonna break it down.
Apparently, $1 million to buy more.
We could turn off, you could turn the light switch behind me.
Better?
Yeah.
Better, much better.
So real briefly, because we're just gonna zoom through all this, if anybody has questions, they can contact me afterwards. Dick Sherman has my contact info. We collected weekly samples throughout the summer, beginning in May, continuing all the way through October this year. Brought them back to the lab at University of St. Joseph, tested them 24-hour incubation period, and then we measured two things. Total fecal coliform, which is all your lovely gastrointestinal bacteria that comes from humans, cows, sheep, fish, anything in the gut gets in the water. And then, of course, we test for E. coli, which is the scarier one. There'll be a lot of health concerns with E. coli. So we're going to just concentrate on showing you some of the E. coli results. Dick did a great job posting slides this summer. We followed Connecticut River Watershed Council's methodology for determining relative safety of exposure to the water. Keep in mind, this is not drinking water and it's not a swimming pool. So this is not being analyzed or monitored by anybody else currently, except for the American Heritage River Commission. So they do a 3-color coded system, blue being deemed safe. Does not mean no E. coli. Safe levels, unless you are immunocompromised, elderly, or very young. You also should not be in the blue in that case. Yellow, stay in your boat. Avoid water fights. Red, look at the water. Don't touch the water. So to go through some of the results real quickly, starting with the blue zones, which are the safe level. So less than 235 CFUs, that's colony forming units. So number of bacteria colonies, E. coli colonies we have. In this graph, the darker shading is last year's results. The lighter blue shading is this year's results just from East Windsor. Number of samples from our 5 locations. So you can see kind of rate of occurrence. Not a huge amount of difference, a little dip at Old Melrose Bridge this year. For high quality sites we had a little bit less. But we also had a little bit more for our Mill Street and our Rice Street. And then East Road was a new site this year. Yellow is the stay in your boat level, so minimal contact, higher levels of E. coli. In this graph, the gray is last year's results, the yellow is from this past summer's results. Hopefully you can notice that we did have a spike increase in yellow levels. Slightly misleading because our sampling session this past year was longer. So we actually had more samples. It's a little bit skewed. I'll show you frequency charts at the very end of this. But we did have a little bit more yellow, particularly at Old Melrose Bridge. Had a lot of problems at Old Melrose Bridge this year. And then red is the danger, don't touch, breathe, look at, the water is okay. So greater than 575 CFU levels. In this graph, red is last year, gray is this year. So you can see the second chart is Old Melrose Bridge. That was definitely our danger site versus the Rice Street sample, which had no red. That was actually the cleanest location of all the ones sampled the past year. We did have one sample where we actually ended up with the maximum countable level of E. coli, which is over 2,000 colony forming units, which was downright scary when I came across this one. So these smaller graphs, and when the State of the Scanning report comes out, you'll see all these in glorious color as well. These are each of the locations, and these are monthly averages. So they average each week, so there might be high weeks and low weeks. These just show the average for each of them. On these charts, the blue colors are last year's, the green colors are from this year, You can probably just about make out the red line. That is that 575 danger level. So anything that is at that line or above is definitely a human health risk. And we don't know what kind of E. coli it is, but the fact that we have that really high level is very concerning. The yellow line is the boating only. So anything that's right towing that line or above it, you should not really be coming in great physical contact with the water. The interesting thing you'll notice from all these charts is notice where the peaks are. So in 2015, most of the higher peaks were in July, where we see the kind of elevated numbers. This past summers, everything was staggered forward. We did have droughts. We had very low flow. Okay, all of that really affects things. So above red line, present for these two locations. For our next one, Mill Street, we didn't quite get to red line. And actually this year was a little bit better. We had a little bit lower from our blue from last year. But we still had several months where we were over the yellow danger line. Rye Street was a clean. That's the one I like processing each week. No red. So if you have to go swimming, go to that location. Nowhere else. And then our final one, again, this was just added this year, so we don't have 2015 data. This is the East Road location. We did have 1 month, again, kind of that stagger step, where we had elevated levels. So the most important thing, to kind of take home message, a 5-second summation, is the chart to the right of the screen. That's frequency of occurrence for each of these levels based on the number of samples. So in 2015, we had a limited year. We were just starting this out. We had 52 samples collected that year. This past year, thanks to the excellent support from the town, started earlier, went later, we were managed to process 95 samples, which is quite a bit. So the blue level, the less than 235, that's the safe level. In 2015, it was right around 77% of all samples were safe in the realm. This past year, it declined. So we're about 59%. We're safe zone. The 235 to 575 is the yellow, stay in the boat level. You can see that we actually did go up in terms of the slightly more non-healthy water levels. Difference from about 14% to 29% this year. Rate of occurrence. Red, although it looked really scary, and you have the graph, and it is scary, we stayed about even in terms of frequency. We had more samples this year, but still hovering around a 9.7% rate of occurrence for every sample collected. It's a sample you shouldn't be touching. It is a little scary. We also do this project in Enfield and Summers. East Windsor, you get the prize. Your levels are definitely higher than the other two. We don't really know why yet, so we need to kind of continue all this surveying and add more sites next year. So just wrap it up, get out of your hair. Just would like to thank everyone for funding, particularly the town of East Windsor, the amazing volunteers from the American Heritage River Commission, my wonderful students that helped this past year. And I'm sure we don't have time for questions, so feel free to contact me.
I'd rather not let you off the hook quite that easy. So the Scantic River flows from the north. So
yes.
And our levels are higher in East Windsor than they are in Enfield?
Yes, they are, which is interesting. I test Town Farm Road, which is pretty close, Powder Hollow, which everybody, that's something we got media attention for. Constant this summer, and I kept telling them East Windsor has got more of a problem. Let's talk about East Windsor, but they only cared about Powder Hollow. So we had 3 sites in Enfield and 2 in Summers. Summers was also high. So you guys kind of aren't as special, I guess. Summers was high. Enfield you'd think would have a lot of problems. Didn't, but they also have a lot more rapids. You add oxygenation, you add flow, that tends to knock the bacteria down. East Windsor, you have a lovely kind of sinuous river here. Lots of curves, flowing eddies, absolutely gorgeous. that's kind of an incubator for bacteria. And early this summer, no rain, that water was virtually not flowing. So you were giving opportunities for things to build up, and then when you had rain, any material that's on the side of the river, manure, fecal matter, you name it, flushed in, and you would see the numbers go straight up. So a colleague of mine at the university is hopefully going to start working on a technique to identify the source of E. coli. So whether it is from a chicken, from a cow, from a human, from a fish, and once we get that worked out, we can start backtracking. You say, well, we have high E. coli levels at this one site. If it is chicken related, are there poultry farms nearby that maybe we need to help the owner kind of figure out where to put the manure piles to resolve? If it's human, is there a malfunctioning septic system? That's going to be several years in the future. It's not just.
So have you mapped out the whole, do you know the what abuts the Scantic River?
Yeah.
Through town and through Enfield and into Summers? In those communities, are there is there agricultural activity? Are there subdevelopments? Because a lot of times homeowners will say, well, if one bag of fertilizer is good, 3 must be great.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of pipes that go under the Scantic that are very old. Some of them are sewage pipes. And if you go out in the middle of summer, you'll actually still see raw sewage being dumped straight into Scantic. There is a lot of agriculture, particularly I'm from Summers, so I know that area really well, but up in the Summers area, there's a lot of erosion, and the agricultural field literally actually goes over the river. And you'll go up in the middle of summer and you'll have to commute between the cows. They're cooling off in the river. So there's lots of potential sources. We don't want to get to the point where we're saying it's your fault or your fault. It's more about awareness. A lot of people are using the river for recreation. There is a significant use of the river now for subsistence, for pulling drinking water out, for can't afford water bills, for fishing, for bathing, and all of that represents potential exposure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you going to be able to continue this testing next year?
If we have the same wonderful support from the town of East Windsor, I know it's a shameless plug, this stuff is not cheap. It's quite expensive. The reagents, trays, you can use once and that's it. I don't charge for time. I don't charge for the use of the lab. I don't charge for disposal of the biohazards we produce. I don't, charge for student time or effort. All I ask is for the materials. So it's been wonderful to have the support of the town. I hope it's been of value to the people to have this information. Certainly it's of value to the state. The state's very interested in what we're doing here. So hopefully we can continue this. Thank you very much for giving us the time.
Thank you.
Okay, Dick, you want to say something about the grant for the Melrose Bridge? We'll like to vote on it.
What we're doing is we're putting in a grant for the restoration of the old Melrose Bridge. Again, we put it in 2009 and don't know where it went to. And we're in the process of doing it again, and what we're doing is, if we can get that bridge done, just a passenger bridge, in other words, a pedestrian bridge, it will open up something like 12 acres of the town land to Enfield line, and then also DEP land all the way down to Canyon on the Ridge. Their land, and we've already gotten permission in their, when they were doing their licensing, they granted a area to go through, so we could probably double the amount of greenway trails in the town, plus it will also hook up to the Enfield greenway trails, and it'll make it that much better for the town and for, you know, recreation and that, so a little bit better, more control, huh?
Okay, I'm going to pass this out. This is my
And one of the other things that we're looking at, that we want to do is, once we get a pedestrian bridge across that bridge, what we want to do, because of the area and it's fairly deep water, we want to see if we can get involved with handicap fishing for the handicapped people, like at the bridge, they could be up there, and then that would be only for the handicapped. If, from what I found out up at the U.S. Fisheries up in Massachusetts, they said if you do have a handicapped fishing area, they will support it with stocking. They stock probably once every 2 weeks or weekly, it all depends. And also they will have people come down and check and make sure to see for the handicap. So that's another plus for us, because we do have quite a few people that are handicapped and they don't have anywhere to go. And what we want to do is give them a place to go if we can.
Okay, thank you. So I would entertain a motion to approve the grant process to rehabilitate the Melrose Bridge and develop additional greenway trails.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the grant process to rehabilitate the Melrose Bridge and develop additional greenway trails, but I'd like a little discussion after the second.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Okay, is this a matching grant or is this a 100% grant?
It's 80-20, but our manpower, all the stuff that we do on that, we get.
Okay, so in other words, you don't have to come before the Board of Finance with your hat in hand?
No.
Okay.
We got
Thank you, Dick.
a lot of manpower hours.
Thank you.
And woman power.
Jason?
This is the Transit-Oriented Development Grant through OPM. You guys tried for last year?
No,
This is different.
we never heard anything from them.
This is an RTP grant.
What's RTP?
Recreational trails,
Through DEEP?
Yes.
DEP.
It's similar to the application that Robin Newton put in 2009. The only difference is that she was looking to do trails on this side of the Scannick. The American Heritage River Commission volunteers have already developed those trails. Now, if we get across the bridge, we can make trails on the other side. And we've already gotten our greenway/blueway status, which was part of what her application was involved with.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 10A, East Windsor 250th Anniversary Commission Report.
All right, so for the East Windsor 250, everything is moving along smoothly. Just our basic status that all of our subcommittees are moving forward with things that need to get done. If anybody would like to join a subcommittee, you're more than welcome to. We have our meetings on the first and third Thursday of the month at the Osborne House, which is 113 Scannick Road, which Paul Anderson has put our lovely banner on the truck that's out there. So can't miss it. Excuse me. So as the 250, we are also helping the veterans group with some of their projects to help support and get the word out. They did have a couple of events recently. They had their dance dinner, which was great, on the 22nd, and then they just had their road race this past weekend, and they have raised $22,000 so far.
Wow.
So I know that Jim wanted to thank a couple of people, so you want to do that now?
Sure. I just wanted to very briefly thank some people for the road race. As you know, we have our road race early in November. We had the 17th annual on November 5th. It's a big project. Veterans Commission, it's all hands on board. The night before, setting up this room, bringing tables from home and equipment and everything else. And then the morning of the race, bringing family members and everything else. I just want to go through this list a little bit. Veterans Commission members and their families, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts are helping us out on the racetrack. Warehouse Point Fire Department, Broadbrook Fire Police, Brendan Albetsky, if any of you know him or have heard him sing, he's always our singer at our different events, he's really good. Speakers, we had Bob, Chris Davis, Captain Owen Humphreys from the National Guard, Father Dan, St. Catherine, St. Philip did the invocation, Mark Simmons, always our MC. In terms of sponsors, well, food donors, we have a lot of food that morning. Bagels and donuts and fruit and stuff like that. So we have food donors, we have Geisler's, Mascon, Dunkin' Donuts, Harkins Market, and a few others. We really appreciate the sponsors. That's the big deal that allows us to raise money. I think we raised some pretty good money this time, and at our next Veterans Commission meeting, we'll decide how much of that is going to our project on the green and how much goes to the rest of the stuff that we do. What we do during the year is we give scholarships, we buy the flags for the utility poles, we help vets in need, and so that's used to be our only fundraiser, and that's what that's for. Silver sponsors are $250 and above. Stanley Black & Decker, Air Serv in North Central Connecticut, Wood Group Pratt & Whitney, Don's Auto Care Center, Collins Pipe and Supply, Pippin & Son, Windsor Federal Savings, Turnpike Motors Auto Body, Olinders, and Easter Landscaping and Repair. That's 10, and that's a big deal. Gold sponsors 500 and above, McKnight Tree Service and Cam Metals. Platinum is over $1,000, and that's Southern Auto, USA Hauling, J.R. Russo and Associates. And this year, the 334 runners. I think we've had probably up to 360 or 390 in the past, but we had 334 this year, so I apologize if I missed anybody, but we got a good event.
That's all I have.
Okay. Barber Hill Schoolhouse. John?
So it's in the hands of the attorneys. They're working it out. Mark Barberry for the Historical Society side, and Jason help me. Jeff? Who's we got in there?
Brian?
Oh, Brian. Brian, the real estate attorney from...
Brian Hirsch.
Brian Hirsch. They're working it out. We're getting very close. So there's no holdups on the town side. There's no holdups on our side. We're just doing paperwork. Just do anytime.
Good.
Thank you very much for that.
Okay. CIP discussion. I don't want to take too much time on this, but in the package I passed out, I listed the things from Joe's and the CIP committee's list that I thought we could, if we wanted to, fund from the fund balance. And so I would ask you to take a look at this, and at the next meeting, maybe we can pick out a couple of those, like the boiler replacement for the schools. And there's other ones too, so maybe we can pick out a few in the next meeting. Is there any discussion? Jason?
This list was compiled by the Capital Improvement Committee?
Yes.
No.
Capital CIP, yes it was.
You picked off it, Bob, the whole
Oh, I
list.
did. The whole list.
The whole list is here.
Is here, and they're numbered.
It's completely different.
1 through 25. And I just picked off some of the 1 through 25. And the way I did it was, as I mentioned in the last Board of Selectmen meeting, some of the items on the CIP list are, in a sense, recurrent, like police department vehicle replacement. There's some put aside every year for that. The Board of Education window abatement we just passed tonight. Public Works paving management, that's something that's $250,000 a year. So, and chip sealing, $75,000 a year. That we don't have to do as a one-shot capital improvement, but the ones I picked out are things that we would do once and never do again. So you can add to this list or take away from this list. This was just a list I put out to give you some guidance, that's all.
And why are we not doing this as part of the regular budget process?
These are CIP. These are over $20,000. They've been approved by the Capital Improvement Committee. They are just they're going to be in above. If you, I'm not sure if you have this list that I passed out at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, but they are proposing to in the budget put $1,200,000 approximately, and of that $1,200,000, they'll just go down this list and take the higher priority ones. Well, if we fund some of those higher priority ones from the fund balance, then the other ones that they can't get to can move up and they can get to them through the CIP. Dick?
The CIP didn't approve the list, they rated the list.
Okay.
There's a big difference.
Okay.
Unfortunately, 2 of the key members weren't there for the last 2 meetings, and their input's going to be needed before anything should be rated.
Okay.
And there are a total of 42 projects on the CIP list,
Correct.
not 25.
Well, on the list, is Joe here?
Yeah.
On this list.
That's our list. I don't know where you got that.
I think you have the whole CIP committee, so.
Yeah. What's this list here, Joe?
That's not my creation, sir.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
Then
my creation, well, that's the committee's creation right
Big
there.
spreadsheet was.
And that's what I presented to you last meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Second of all, if I may just bring something to your attention that was brought to my attention that we've been dealing with, which is on the list, is in fact, the server at the fire department has crashed several times in the last week. And this is part of our CIP package. And if an added appropriation is going to be made, at the request of the fire department, I'm giving you guys this, that this is very important, this is very crucial for the day-to-day operations, all the emergency calls, everything they do, they really need this server to be taken care of. This was a CIP project, and if you guys are going to make some decisions, that might be one of the ones that should move to the top of the list.
Is this an emergency yet, Joe?
It is an emergency, yes.
It is.
If the chief or the deputy chief would like to speak on it.
I think we need to hear this.
But that's for your consideration. Obviously, we're not on the agenda to talk about that, but the priority list that we made, the big green spreadsheet, is the list that the committee who did come to the meetings that could make it, and there were times where some people were there and some people weren't. Unfortunately, we needed to get the process done, and we did follow the process. We did do a different ranking this year, gave a very broad spectrum of the projects, and it is basically the consensus of the committee. These are the projects that we would like to fund in this order. Now, granted, in the past, we've been given the dollar amount because CIP doesn't always get what they ask for, and then we've allocated the funds to try to fund what we could. So if this board would like to give CIP a certain dollar amount, we could reevaluate and prioritize at a certain dollar amount, but my recommendation is to start at number one and work down, because that's the consensus of the committee.
Jason?
So the practice, as I understand it in the past, had been that, and when I was the chairman of the Board of Finance, we instituted this policy, that what we would try and do is set aside in the capital improvement budget a fixed percentage of what the overall budget was for the town, specific for capital purchases. So as the town's budget grew over time, the available funding for capital projects would also grow. If the town's budget were to shrink, not likely, but if the town's budget were to shrink, so too would the available funding for capital purchases. Is that no longer the practice?
That's the practice.
So, again, why are we entertaining capital projects when we're 5 weeks away from the budget cycle starting?
Because it would be good to reduce the fund balance. That's a good thing to do. And the CIP committee has determined where, and we use it on capital improvements. We wouldn't use it on reoccurring events. So the CIP committee has determined what's important to the town and prioritize those. So that's where we should invest the surplus in our fund balance, in my opinion.
So, Joe, we're talking 2.5% or 3%?
We asked for 3.
Okay, thank you.
It's on the top of that spreadsheet, it's in small, I apologize. I'm getting better with that stuff, but.
That's all right.
You gotta use bigger paper.
I think we have to approve the printer that's on the list in order to do that.
It's number 24. So, well, okay, I'm not inclined really to, I think this might be a little tone deaf to the mood that some people may feel to be entertaining spending another $1.37 million right this minute. And I just doing a quick look over, one of the things that, there are some things on here that really are objectionable. For example, the 23rd priority, which is like number 14 on here, is the replacement of a vehicle for the building department for $23,000. Past practice has been that we would take a dated police car, which we already own, and roll that over to use for town purposes for no money. So that, I mean,
It's not no money, Jason.
well, it's
The
less than
cruisers
23
are
grand.
junk. There is no good cruisers available. The one sitting over the town garage should have been the Levier's a long time ago. It's gonna cost you more to keep them on the road than to just buy a car that runs cheap and do it the way it should be done. But that's beside the point.
Well, and I'm not saying, I'm not advocating for these, I'm just saying that we might agree on some of them. And hearing what Joe has to say, I think we should reevaluate it with a complete list. And so I'll send out the information to you after this meeting, when I gather it, that list, and we'll go from there.
Denise got her hand up.
Yeah, Denise.
As a member of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, not just this year, and I did this the last 2 meetings, but also in probably the last 20 or so years, I'm wondering if you could probably accomplish both things, include the things that are the highest priority, go through the process the way it's spelled out in the charter, actually, how capital improvement is part of the budget. But if you feel that you want to fund some of that through the fund balance, make that part of the funding of the capital plan. As you're doing the budget, not outside of the budget process halfway through the year, which is not part of the budget process that all the voters agreed to at the beginning of this year, this fiscal year. They voted on a budget. They can vote on a budget with as many capital improvement planning recommendations and fund some of it through fund balance, through the normal budget process, and you all get what you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, I think we should have the treasurer here to make a decision like that, so I'll talk to her about that.
Okay, well, while we're on that, what do we, Mr. Joe just hit us with, we're gonna have to at least put it on our agenda
Yes.
for next meeting, unless it's a big enough emergency that it needs to have a special meeting. I mean, Tommy and Jerry can agree to that. I don't know, but we really need to do.
Hey, Joe?
Yes, sir.
I'm sure Hillary Clinton's probably got an extra server right now.
Steve.
I had to say it.
Be a gentleman, will you?
Chief, how, if that server hasn't been working,
Let Jerry answer the question. He's far more.
Hey, you got that passed on you, Jerry.
I'm not even computer savvy.
We'll get your brother.
Just a little background, about 10 years ago, we kind of Mickey Mouse some kind of system that worked for us. 5 years ago, we finally got a server. To try and stay within our budget, we got something cheap with the server 2003. The problem we're running into now is that software is not being supported a lot by other things. With the recent construction at the firehouse, with our generator going down and them shutting breakers off and everything to the building while they hooked up the temporary one, it seems as though in the last month and a half, the server just ups and shuts down, which is not good for anybody that may know anything about servers. They're supposed to be up and running all the time. With scheduled shutdowns and stuff like that. I'll get a call from the chief or another officer saying, hey, we can't do our reports, we're having issues getting into our files because everything's on the server. And depending on where I am, it may be a day or two before I can get to the firehouse and try and figure it out. And I am by far, I think, close to being an IT person. So we had the town's IT people can't come in. They gave us a quote on updating our system and getting more updated, and that's what we have now. The problem is I think that this has become more of a priority for us before we lose our information and the server crashes and just doesn't turn back on. So while I believe it's a little bit of an emergency for us in our operating and taking care of what we need, you know, if it needs to wait till the next Board of Finance meeting or Board of Selectmen meeting to do something, that's, I think we can hopefully stretch it out.
I can honestly say I walked into the fire department last night and Jerry said to me, why do you keep turning the circuit breakers off? And I said to Jerry, nobody's worked here in 2 weeks. So it is a problem.
We could approve it tonight.
can we make a motion to send this on to the Board of Finance
Yes, we
for
could.
discussion?
Yeah.
It appears that if we drag our feet too long, they may have a problem, so.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Well, I think the better question is if it goes down and doesn't start up, what happens?
Well,
Oh.
we receive all of our calls through town and county, through the CAD now. Everything comes in, automatically populates. With that being said, we won't be getting our times, we won't be able to submit our infers reports on time. If we have cardiac arrest type calls where we need that information, we have to send that to our sponsor hospital within 24 hours. We're not gonna be able to get those times and calls into our report. So it kind of hinders us slightly there.
I made the motion.
Okay,
Send it
so
on
we-
to the
It's
Board of
got a
Finance.
second.
Yeah, why don't,
Just, I got one question. Is yours gonna be compatible with Jim's? Or
No,
they don't work together?
No, they don't. The two departments are separate.
Oh, I know that, but it's beside the point.
No, I mean, I don't know anything about what they
Okay.
have at the Rouse Point District. Maybe Rich?
To answer the question more directly, we moved our firehouse software is what he's talking about mostly, and we moved ours to the cloud. We don't have it on-house anymore. I could get on it from my phone right now if I wanted to.
And is this cloud-based, this proposal?
Yes, the software, your new software is all cloud-based.
It will be, yes.
Yes, it should
But
be
there's
pretty
other,
compatible.
you know, there's our finances that are on that server, all of our documents that we use on a day-to-day basis, you know, everything's on a server. And if it crashes, we're just gonna lose it all.
I just asked, do you have backup?
We do not have backups. That was staying within our budget thing. And it's, we did what we could with what we had, and, yeah, it's a very good question. That's one thing I failed to bring up. And that's another reason why this is something that hopefully we can move forward.
So I'd entertain a motion to approve up to $33,381 to replace the server.
I'm sorry, Bob, that price isn't just for the server, obviously.
From equipment
That would
upgrade.
be a crazy amount. It's for all equipment upgrade, and that's the labor to install it, get it done. Updating some of the older computers that are outdated. So it's a package. Like I said, they went through the whole firehouse to see,
And it would go out to bid if that's what you're gonna ask.
That was one
It would go out
question.
to bid, yeah.
The second question would be, what's the turnaround time? Once we say you've got the funding, how long does it take?
Depending on the bid process and who we hire,
Okay.
and depending on the dollar amount on how we broke it out. If we broke it out to us individually purchasing the hardware where we put a bid package out to keep it under 20,000, it would help us with, we wouldn't have to post it in the newspaper. We could hire 3 or 4 local people, get them to give us our prices and make it move a lot faster. They're not looking at anything as elaborate as the town stuff. They're just looking for, a decent server that's going to integrate with the cloud and work with some software upgrades that they need.
Got a question.
And that's, I guess, how I would recommend we would do it, is break it into a general contracting project and the town be the general contractor. And if we had to hire 2 or 3 people to do it, we would just have to manage the project.
Okay, and you've got time on your schedule?
Oh. Christmas holidays coming up, so I'll have some free time there. And it is winter, and I was told that's my slow time.
Yeah.
So, can anybody explain what the breakdown in this actually is? Like, what are, I don't speak tech spec, so what are we getting for $4,500? What are we getting for $2,480? Why are we paying taxes?
Well, that's just a quote that we will not pay taxes. That's a quote from our vendor right now that does our town server. That's our IT company. So it's a quote, it's a baseline price for us to work from. I'm gonna tell you my track record, and you all know my track record with giving you prices. I come in substantially cheaper, and that's why people love me.
So in this package, what is the server and what is not the server?
What is,
I think at the first page, 4,500 is probably the server.
Okay, so.
And then everything that's listed underneath there is probably everything that's in the server. I think, like I said, I don't speak that language at all. I just get stuff that nobody else wants to do.
Server, yeah, it's right here, yeah, it's a server.
Dell Power.
Yep, that's a server.
There's a $4,500 invoice, or quote.
Right.
Is this a different quote? How much is this? There's a $2,400 quote. There's an almost $12,000 quote, and there's an $825 quote. How does that equal $33,000?
please?
No,
No, I'm the one who got the price. I'm the one who worked with the IT company that we work with. If you go to the first page, that is the end. The 4,500 is the actual cabinet for the server.
Yep.
And then as you go down, they break it down into every component that is located in the server. Switches, RAM.
Yeah, all that equals the $4,500. I get that.
All that equals, okay, all that equals the 12, almost 14,000.
No.
Keep going. Software licenses. Warranties.
found it very hard to follow that as well, when I was trying to read through it. I wish I could help you, but I can't.
That guy in the back.
I appreciate the candor.
Yeah,
I think there's a guy standing in the back of the room that could understand it.
Well, I don't see the numbers adding up either. They're not listed as far as I can see.
I'm getting
I see 11,700.
29,505.
See, they should have totaled every page and then
Yeah,
put it
yeah.
to grand, and then they would have, it's hard to, I agree with what he's saying, it's hard to.
There's also some wiring in here they have built in that they probably didn't itemize out.
Because it really,
I could get them in here. Like I say.
tomorrow night would be the
We
night.
brought them down there, we showed them what we had, we showed them what we needed to fix, and this is what they came up with. It's an estimate. And that's how we work. I cannot get a fixed hard price until I have the money in place.
I'm not asking you for it.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, IT is relatively new to me.
More new to me.
Well, I make a motion to get this thing rolling because
We already
it's
did, didn't we?
been sitting here for, I made the motion, was there a second?
I did, a long time ago.
Okay.
But we should put a number to it and recommend it to the Board of Finance and the town meeting if necessary, if he can break it into parts and keep it under whatever.
I'm not comfortable putting a dollar amount to it. I think that's something that they can discuss with the Board of Finance.
Well, you could put not to exceed or whatever. Or well, maybe we should just make it a suggested amount then.
Okay,
I mean, their meeting's tomorrow night.
I know, Dick, that's why I'm trying to get this done now. Half hour ago. Not to exceed 33,000?
33,381 is the number they came up with. You prepared tomorrow night, Joe? Tom?
So I made the motion, I amended it with the 33,381. Someone's got to second that?
Steve?
Okay, now we'll
Dick,
vote.
you second it?
Oh, yes, well, whatever. If they
Any
wanna second it,
discussion?
Go ahead. I could care.
Okay, hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Motion carries.
I just don't know enough about it. I can't be.
No, I hate to rush these things.
Okay, moving on to 10D South Road. Okay, Linda, you want to come up and talk about it? What we're proposing is to transfer the South Road tenant invoicing from the East Windsor Housing Authority to the town. We've discussed this, Linda and I and Kim, and we feel that because of the collection of the rent and the management of the renters at South Road and Phelps Road, that it would be more straightforward if the town, since they have to manage the land rental that they're doing, and collect the rents if they're delinquent, that if the town took over the whole process, it would be clearer to the tenants. And so we'd like to do that. We have a letter that our lawyer, Josh Fox-Ladd, has written and approved, and it's just a matter of sending the letter to the East Windsor Housing Authority to have this occur. And I think the letter was in your package, so any comments? Are you comfortable with this? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Has your board discussed it?
Not officially. We did not have a
You
meeting.
don't get that septic.
So this is not an agenda item at a housing authority.
But I think the town has the opportunity to take back after this one-year period.
I think there's a 30-day.
There's a 30-day notice, and we'd like to take over this accounting on January 1st. So we should send this letter now, and the letter does specify the dates and what should be done when, and we would take it over on January 1st, 2017.
Well, they haven't had a meeting. How do we know if they all agree?
I did send this letter.
On the phone, while I was driving past your house.
Should have stopped there.
I think,
I wasn't gonna name it.
no, I don't mind throwing it right out there because I've already done what I could do already tonight. I have a really nice little timeshare in the Springs, Florida with 85 golf courses and 195 swim teams waiting for me. So, I believe, Jason, Mr. Bubbleton, our conversation was aware that this was going down. And I think I said, no, I wasn't aware of it going down type of thing. Seemed like it was going around. We informally discussed it one time lightly, and this is unorthodox for sure. But you know something? Government is a little unorthodox at times also. You want to hold it to the T? Wait and wait and wait. That's fine.
No.
You want to?
Problem is that the time frame is pretty tricky and pretty close. But we need the approval of the Housing Authority Commission.
No, we don't.
Not at all.
There are two, we don't need the approval.
We don't
of the
need their
Housing Authority
approval.
Commission, and the time frame is irrelevant. We're trying to meet a January 1st deadline, but that's an arbitrary thing.
Okay.
It's a 30-day termination
Right.
whenever we want to do it. So there is no urgency to do it right this minute.
Then
So you don't need our vote?
We can do it anyway.
No.
Right.
I asked for your vote because I talked to 3 commissioners, and I suspect the 4th would have been on the same page.
Hey,
When we had these discussions with the commissioners, I was under the impression that as long as it was okay with the staff, because we were doing the work, that it was okay with them. The only caveat that came up was when we were applying for the small cities grant, that we did not, and they did not want that to be an issue in terms of that being not in our portfolio as affordable housing. And I spoke with our project manager, if you will, Wagner Associates, applying for the application. He said that was not an issue. So I was under the impression that it was okay with the commissioners to go ahead with it until this was brought up that you had a conversation with them.
well, let's postpone it then until.
You only have 5.
Ma'am, you said you got a hold of the people, you emailed them, asked them if they had any concerns about this. Nobody got back to you.
Correct.
So obviously, they don't have any concerns. Okay, here we sit again, beating a dead horse to death again.
So Steve, when's the last time you responded to an email?
Okay?
That's enough, Jason. I think that's good.
Well, I'm just saying, there's people who don't use email.
So if they're not getting back to this lady, so they don't care, these two say, go ahead and do it. So why don't we get it off the table tonight so we can move on to other important issues?
Yeah, I would save them a lot of.
it's not our decision, just like you said. It's not our decision.
It's not
It's
my
a
fault to
courtesy
make a
is what it
decision without
was.
your board weighing in. That's my point. I'm the reason that this has been stalled twice. I fully admit that, but,
You?
yeah, go figure. But people
We're
have
actually pretty good, pretty good.
something.
It's okay, we'll do it Monday.
I felt the same, I thought, but apparently not.
Well, you Good luck. You didn't answer my call.
Okay,
Mine
so,
either.
I guess, go ahead.
Before you do anything, okay, the last meeting in this discussion brought up the issues with the sewer.
Yes.
And South Road, I have additional information as of today,
Okay.
which will be probably useful. It won't sway this decision, but I think it's important that the Board of Selectmen knows what's going on
Thank you, sir.
with the yards and all the things.
Thank you.
Oh, you don't care if you read it now, it's just information package.
If you feel more comfortable waiting, that's fine. Monday's our meeting, and
If we don't have another meeting until
Yeah,
next month.
I would feel more comfortable if we just do it. I think we have the chairman of the commission saying that he's comfortable that we have the staff of the East Windsor Housing Authority saying they're comfortable with it. Our treasurer really thinks this should be done. I think it should be done. And for months, we've been talking about rent collection. I think it's time to do it. And so I'd recommend that we make a motion to send this letter to the East Windsor Housing Authority.
Because we really ultimately, when it comes down to the enforcement of the rent collection and all that, it falls back onto us anyway.
we just get
You
a
know, I
fee
mean,
for being
it's
administrators.
kind of crazy.
Well, I'd entertain a motion then.
Okay,
There's no more
I'll make a
discussion.
motion to authorize the first selectman, Robert Maynard, to sign the letter to the East Windsor Housing Authority, read the termination of management agreement for South and Phelps Road development.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
And I'll break the tie with the aye.
See you Monday night.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this handout that you just gave us, does this indicate that we're now liable for something?
We were anyway,
Always have been.
always have been.
It's just a matter of you're doing your transfer, and I want to make sure you understand that's another factor that's involved.
Okay, farm lease. We have the lease from the lawyer. You want to sign it?
Well, Glenn, did you see it?
Sure.
You got a copy?
Huh?
You got a copy?
We'll make a copy. We'll sign it.
Well, I got one to use this
Oh,
one.
all right.
I got one, you got one, so we're all set. You happy?
I'm always
That'd be the
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
I'll witness it again.
Here's your money,
All right.
9/28/16.
That's close.
Been going on a long time,
Hey,
huh?
Glenn, it's the same year?
Hey, you haven't planted the seed yet.
Come on, Glenn.
I plan it every day.
Okay. Well, we got it.
Yeah, mine's stapled, his isn't.
I have to change the date. Today is
Both got initial it.
November.
You got initial his copy.
You only got one pen.
There you go, right here. Can't afford another.
Box them in a truck. Okay.
I think it's best to have a blue one.
There you go. We can share it. We're good. Good.
I want that back, that's my Oliver Parks number.
Oh, life is good.
Now we got the backs.
You gotta go here. You gotta place the name at the bottom here. 15. You sure?
That's good. That was a good one.
Well, but you renew it anyway. What's a softball?
Oh, yes, we were.
Steve.
Okay, so we've got a witness to Mr. Wright, lease. You got notary person, Steve? Okay. Your pen? No, I noticed it. Yeah, you notice everything, just sign it. You'll print your name. Thank you, Glenn.
16 years, huh? All right.
Yeah, we'll go have a beer after 16 years.
All right, you got it. I hope. I'll be there.
You'll be there.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
You're younger than I am.
Anywhere.
I am younger than you.
You're younger than I am,
You're
buddy.
to join me.
So you got a full copy for you? Oh, you give Bob the check, not me.
Bob gets the check.
That's that and the insurance, all right?
Here, clip it right together.
Where's Joe? All right.
Okay, Warren, you need another clip?
Yeah, I'll give you this one. I'll take it. All right, I'm all set.
Okay, all set?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You want to clip the check to it for tonight?
Sure, that's okay.
Here, yeah, then you won't lose it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Only took a while.
Yeah, I need a copy of the check. Where's Joe? You left? A copy, man?
I can make a copy.
They're probably back.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Okay.
6 hours.
Moving right along.
Farm lease is done. Discussion of casino and community outreach. I guess the way I'd like to handle this is to have the board discuss it, and then if there's people in the audience who want to discuss it and give us questions or suggestions, we'll do kind of like public participation. So raise your hand, one person speak at a time, and we'll have no back and forth in the audience or from the table back and forth. So, all right. As far as the casino goes, I would say really the lot has not changed. There's 5 locations being considered. When and if we became one of the final 2 locations, then more things would start to happen. Now, really, not very much has happened. Some of the major things that I consider is one, in Springfield, there's a $900 million casino being built, and all the effects from that casino will spill down here. Also, Windsor Locks is being considered, and if there's a casino in Windsor Locks, any problems that they would have in Windsor Locks, we'd have here too. The tribal nations have said they'll fund the casino themselves. They wouldn't ask for a tax rebate, and if you take a very conservative estimate and just say that the casino's worth $200 million, that would give us over $4 million in tax revenue.
Thank you.
And that, I think, is a very conservative estimate. The casino will bring over closer to 2,000 jobs here to our area. The casino would give us priority in hiring. They would hire people from East Windsor, if the casino came to East Windsor, give the residents of East Windsor a higher priority in hiring. So there's a lot of big good points. There's some downsides too to the casino. There was speak of outreach at the last Board of Selectmen meeting. How are we going to outreach to the community? Well, and when, well, we're already outreaching. This is outreaching to the community, and really, on October 14th, we submitted the proposal on that Sunday after I found out that it was going to be in the paper the Monday morning. So the 17th, it was in the paper in the morning. We put it on our website and our Facebook on the 18th. It's been in the newspaper. So it has been on the radio. There's been articles. So people are kind of aware that we're thinking about putting a gaming casino where the abandoned Showcase Cinema is. As far as outreach goes, actually, this meeting is will be televised. It'll be on YouTube, and if we go to the website tomorrow, it'll have links to where it is on YouTube. The only other thing is we have a fund for community outreach. I think there's only $3,000 in it for the entire year. We could spend it on this. That's up to the Board of Selectmen. I think the reason we have the $3,000, when the Board of Finance was considering it, we thought it would be best to send out something just before the first budget referendum to explain the budget. And if we do something with the casino, we wouldn't be able to do it for the first budget referendum. So that's my thoughts, and I'm open to any thoughts from the boards of selectmen.
There's really not much to say since it's still in the...
I can say this too. I did talk to, in the group representing the tribal nations is MMCT, Mashantucket, Mohegan, Connecticut, I believe it stands for. So they're really the people that we're speaking to. And I met with them, and they said that they would like to set up a meeting with the chief of police and the fire department, chiefs of the fire departments, just to talk about safety in the area. They feel that the area becomes safer when they're present and when they're not. And they also wanted to say, we're not going to suck up resources. They seem to want to partner with us. So that's one thing. They're starting to reach out to us. I suggested too that they talk to the superintendent of schools just to get her input, Teresa Keynes. So they're starting to reach out to us, I'd say. Steve?
Well, I just want to make it still known that I'm for this thing. And what do we got to do to get this thing moving faster so that...
Well, I think, like I say, it's up to the MMCT to narrow down the sites that they're going to consider. So we're kind of in a waiting game, but that's all I can say.
Yeah, East Windsor is kind of unique in some respects because we have a good site with the state road access already in place. We have 2 exits off of 91 and/or entrances, both all well established. I guess we are chatting with the zoning official, not officially the meeting because they have to come before that. But as far as I know, they can put the casino in that area. It's already zoned for it.
Yeah, that's a positive.
So there's a positive there.
And it's in what they call a HIFZ, I think, Highway Interstate Floating Zone, which makes it very amenable to zoning. It basically says when you're in a floating zone, you can build many things there, gas stations, restaurants, retail stores, most anything you want to build in this, and it has to be adjacent to the highway. So there, in the Showcase Cinema itself was a recreational entertainment, so it's right along the lines of a gaming facility. So it seems to be zoned properly. And there's, if we became a finalist, became one of the final 2 or so, then we get into some very more specific information, traffic studies and things like that. the overview, and so there'll be a little more information coming, and I'll be asking them for information, but certainly you can suggest information too, once we're through talking as selectmen. Is there anything you guys want to bring up?
Okay, so now does this have to go to a public vote to get approved? We decided we wanted it.
Well, and I've, in talking to our lawyers about that, I talked to them about a referendum, and there's some question. When I became a selectman, I said, oh, we'll have a referendum, but I really didn't know what I was talking about because state statutes govern when you can have a referendum and what a referendum can decide. Planning and zoning certainly can decide what you're going to have where, but a referendum really looks like it. I haven't gotten all the, from Pullman and Comley, all the write-up that specifies, but it seems to indicate that a referendum has to do with financial. The town is the financial managers of the tax money the people give us. So anything that has to do with the finances of the town can go to a referendum. But whether or not a private party can sell to another private party is something that I don't think it can be done with a referendum. In fact, we could even be liable to litigation if we tried to make it a binding referendum, and even if we had it just for a public feeling, just to get a sense of it, that would be spending money, town money, for no reason at
So
all.
Showcase wanted to sell to the casino. They could buy it. They could come in with all the approvals and set up a casino. And we wouldn't have to take it to a public vote.
I think that's the case, but like I say, we're still waiting on an opinion from the...
And we've always done a public vote just as a courtesy to the people.
Have we ever done a public vote on something like this?
Well, no,
not at all.
You know, the hearings to get, we did it with the mill. Remember, they were gonna give us the property.
That was on the town acquiring it.
That was financial statement.
Yeah, but they weren't gonna buy it, they were gonna give us that land free.
Still acquired.
It's still a land transfer, and by
It has to
statute,
be
we
by
need
town
to
meeting.
accept that through our
Yeah,
legislature.
it has to do with the town finances or assets, that definitely.
Okay. Everybody's got to be aware that it still has to go through the wetlands process, the
Yes.
zoning process, at which time all the public can voice whatever.
And
The planning and zoning doesn't have to take a referendum from the people to approve.
Public hearing,
They
but-
follow the statutes and the rules.
I also speaking with the MMCT, if we do become finalists or as time goes along, or if we want them to, they really want to partner with us, so we can certainly have public meetings and anytime we want, and I'm sure they'd be happy to attend. So maybe we should think about that. And
I think education on the process would be
yeah, and get into
huge.
some little.
I think so.
Well, and then the
detail,
public
yeah.
gets a chance to
Right.
weigh in on it. And I think that it's too big a project not to have the taxpayers.
You got to have public meetings, no
Right.
question of that.
So that's a good idea.
If we can get Teresa to
Yeah,
loan
give-
us the
give-
high school, it would be
yeah.
a nice place for it.
Okay.
I would hate it to see us beat it to death to the point where they said the hell with it and left. Because that's what happened to Lowe's, who wanted to build on the Leda farm. And they couldn't take it anymore, and they pulled out of Dodge.
That wasn't the whole story.
Well, a lot of it was, a lot of it
Jason?
was.
So I think that as long as we're talking about, the message that's being circulated in the community, this is certainly something that people are going to have an opinion about. And I think that we have to walk a pretty delicate line in terms of making sure that information that we put out to people is accurate and is complete. But I think we also have to make sure that somebody else, some other party doesn't start spreading misinformation before we're able to do that.
Yeah, in fact, I'll mention the one party I'm very concerned about.
MGM?
Yes, it's the $900 million casino up the street.
Sure.
They would prefer, if we become a finalist, I think they would prefer that there be no casino here, and you'll hear some very negative things. So we'll definitely have somebody coming into our town telling us what we want and don't want, and so we'll have to be prepared for that. And like you say, accurate information is the key.
So the due diligence is being done to make sure that we know what we're getting into and that we are prepared to articulate that in a way so that people have confidence in that due diligence, right?
Yes. I have contacts with the MMCT, and they'll answer any questions we have, and they'll give a presentation when we want it.
And we have counsel?
We have a counsel with Pullman and Conley. His name is Michael Andriana, and he's our counsel for, and he's working on the legality of a referendum, and he's also, I've heard talk about it, but I haven't talked to them about it, something called a development agreement. If we ever got to the point of actually being a finalist, we'd have to sit down with our lawyer and their legal staff and work out details, and I'm not sure really what those details would be, but it obviously would involve the fire departments and the police departments and the school system.
So a development agreement, as I understand it, is our opportunity to put on a page what the town would hope to acquire from hosting this type of a venture above and beyond just the boost to the grand list. So that is something that would be a negotiation and something that we should talk about, to make sure that we are
Yes, and
protecting the interests of the town and not having that in public.
Absolutely. Okay, any more comments? Open it up to the far in the back there. I don't know your name.
Bob L. 40 Sharon Lane. So
I didn't hear. Could you? So we
Need
did
it for the
that-
recording secretary.
Sure, Bob L. 40 Sharon Lane.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. When would we know more about when these meetings are proceeding to occur?
As soon as we do.
When would you like them?
ASAP.
Okay.
So the process that they're going to need to go through in order to secure a location anywhere involves legislative approval. The legislative session starts again in January. It's, I would assume, a safe bet that they're going to want to have a decision made on or around the beginning of the legislative session, because there's the whole legislative process to go through, and if they miss it, they have to wait another 13 months. So it won't be long.
And Bob, you said you'd like it as soon as possible. What type of presentation would you want, and what would content of that presentation?
Personally, I oppose it. I'm concerned about the traffic it would bring in.
Okay.
So I'd like to know what would be done to mitigate the potentially increased traffic.
Okay.
I'd like to also understand what would be the pros of bringing it here beyond the tax revenue and potential jobs. And what would we do with the funds should we receive that?
That's a good question. I've been asked that question, and I think the Board of Selectmen will have to talk that over. I'd like to talk it over with the treasurer. I'd like to reduce taxes if we could. All right. Other public participation? Denise.
Hi, Denise Menard, 73 Miller Road. Bob, can you speak a little to, I get the zoning piece of it and the development agreement, but have you had discussions with the MMCT about somebody's going to be buying the property, and then what's the town's relationship with how it's going to get built?
That's a question. How's it going to get built?
Is the MMCT going to be contracting the people, or is there a builder in place like we had previously? At the other side, there was a center plan
Yes.
The disastrous people
Great
that were
choice.
for the baseball field.
They almost built a baseball stadium.
So it's probably a really good thing that that didn't go any further, but who's the center plan of this new plan?
I think, that's a good question, but I do think that MMCT is the key, and they would hire somebody.
So they're purchasing property?
I would think that the MMCT would purchase the property, yes.
So do you have any renderings of what the building,
No, but good you brought that up, because when I was talking to them, they did say renderings. We would like to give you more detail, and when they were talking about more detail, they did say renderings. So
and they would have a traffic plan and all of that in the near future, so that people like the police and fire and everybody that needs to get comfortable with it would have an idea of what they're talking about for ingress and egress and emergency access and all of that.
The answer is yes, they definitely should have that. And I'm glad you brought it up, because I'll make sure they have that. When, that's a different, I'll have to ask them, I don't know when, but it should be fairly soon. I think there's, well, 2 good points you brought up at least.
Well, thank you.
And thank you.
I would think we're kind of early in the game for that, because renderings are going to be site-specific.
But if they're
And if it is in East Windsor, then of course the rendering's going to be different. If it's a flat lot like East Hartford, it's going to be entirely different depending on the
But
site.
if they're going to consider us, they'll have to think about
They
it.
have an idea if
Oh, I
they're,
think
if
so
they're
too.
purchasing the.
And nothing's going to fly without the fire marshal's signature on the dotted line.
Well, the
You
fire
think that's not
marshal
going to get
can-
reviewed?
Oh, sitting right there.
Sitting right there.
It's going to be a busy.
You'll be a busy person.
Okay, another person, anybody else want to? Yes.
I guess I just,
Name?
sorry, Kate Carey Trell, 28A, Folkestone Road. I guess just kind of piggyback on your thing, not specific renderings, but has there, and maybe this has already been discussed, but has there been discussion, is it just a certain type of gaming facility? Does it include restaurants? Does it include other? I mean, you said we're a floating zoning area. I'm just curious what all is in the scope of this.
I think that's a very good point. A restaurant, I'm not sure. I don't know. Definitely, there would be obviously slot machines and gaming facility, gaming tables. It would be much smaller than the one in Springfield, but like I say, $200 million is a low estimate, so I'm not trying to fool anybody. It'll be higher than that. So that's a good point you bring up, and we should get that information. Jim?
Jim Richards, 27 Pleasant Street. I think there's a couple things we need to keep in mind. One, from a marketing point of our properties in town, this is great in the sense that the casino didn't come. We're certainly promoting something that's for sale. The other is we have to look at the region as a whole. And if you look just across the river, what Windsor Locks is doing from the moving of the train station to the construction of housing, to the economic development area that they're going to create just on the other side of the river. And if you look what's gone on in the town recently and what we have planned, irregardless of whether the casino's here, I heard increased traffic. You're probably going to get that with what's going on in any other projects and so on. Just as an example, so I recommend anybody highly take a look at the plan of conservation and development. The planning office has a map that shows the layout of what Warehouse Point has got planned. There's concerns with the state wanting to put a turnstile on this side of the river, which some of us oppose. But we're going to have traffic, we're going to have business, there's going to be commerce going on. If we don't create it, it is going to be created from the other side of the river. So there's a lot of good, positive things, irregardless of whether the casino comes in or not, that will benefit the town. So I'm personally, I'm glad we're going through the process. We're getting our name out there. We've got a great tax rate compared to other towns around us, and I just want everybody to keep that in mind so we don't get bogged down in one thing and think of the positive aspects of the economic development. Bob joked about lowering taxes, but that's the true way to lower and not cut services is economic development. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah. And I'll just mention that when I was talking to the MMC people, I brought up this idea of transportation, and I call it a rubber wheel trolley, but as Jim mentioned, there's going to be a second rail in Warehouse Point, not Warehouse Point, in Windsor Locks, probably in 2018, 2019. They're going to have 24 commuter trains going from Hartford to Springfield daily. And people certainly can live, and have in the past actually lived in Warehouse Point, walked to the train station where it's now going to be located, taken the train in, to work in the insurance companies, come back and to their home in Warehouse Point. And before we talked about having a loop of transportation where, so we had this trolley just on rubber wheels, no tracks, go from the train station to Warehouse Point, up, if we had a casino, it would go up to, and the casino might be interested in funding it, to Sophia's Plaza, and then if they need workers, they could come right up here to many of the housing in here, and I think of Mill Pond Village as a large housing area. And then we could have a loop around to Walmart and back, so we could have that loop that we're looking for, just to tie the town together. And so there's a lot of strong possibilities that could happen if we did have a gaming facility in the abandoned Showcase Cinema. So I of course supported that. But I'm still listening and getting information from the MMCT. Yes?
How is it legally possible to build a casino in one of these 5 areas? Doesn't it have to be a tribal land?
And that's what Jason was referring to when he said the state legislature is going to meet in January, on January 1st, January 4th, I guess.
That's when they convene.
They convene. They're going to have to pass a law or saying that a gaming facility can be built in a particular area, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, so I haven't studied this particular piece of it, but I believe they've actually gone through the Department of Interior, through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, to make sure that this is all T's crossed, I's dotted. There's a compact between the tribal nations and the state of Connecticut that dates back to the Weicker administration in the early 90s, that the Attorney General, I think, has weighed in on, that this comports to the parameters of that. But this is not, I have not at all looked into the legislative. That's not my job. I work for the Department of Agriculture. We like take care of cows. So my understanding from the time that I worked in the General Assembly is that there are processes that have taken place, and I know that this is a project that's been on the table for a while. And they're not starting from scratch right now today. They have had these conversations with the powers that be in Hartford, whether it be legislative leaders or the Attorney General's office or the folks that they need to talk to. And quite frankly, that wouldn't be something that is our concern as the host community. That they need to get all those approvals before they're going to be allowed to do it. And if they don't secure those, that's on them.
Yes?
How long would it take to build a facility roughly, order of magnitude?
Another good question.
Less than a baseball stadium.
Well, I asked because if you consider the casino up in Springfield, it's been going on for years. I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah, but they moved churches and they demolished many buildings.
I don't know. It's a good question. I'll ask them. If I had to speculate, I would say they could probably do it in less than a year. Another thing that is good about that location, because it was a movie theater, they have a tremendous amount of parking there. And it's very difficult to, in many cases, to get parking areas because the water just runs off macadam, and it's a wetland nightmare. But now these are really in place to do that, so it would take less work to some degree. Yeah.
Brandon Neal, 153 Melrose Road. I was just wondering, I understood that it's also supposed to be, or could include where the old Walmart was?
Yes.
What would happen to Big Y?
That's a very good question. And that whole building is rented, Big Y rents. I like Big Y, and so I would be wondering, I have to find another place for them, we'd have to,
They don't want to know.
but that's a concern.
Got another,
Yes,
Mary Hefner, 2 Napoleon Drive. Just one person's opinion, and at this point, I understand Bob's concerns. And I think the important message, we talked about this a little bit, a lot of this is reminding me of when we all sat here about a year ago and worried about the gun range. And I'm very glad that that didn't pass, because that was in my backyard. But it sounds like it's another situation of whether we like it or not, they can do it. So I think it's going to be really important to get the message out to the community so that we all know, like, he knows he's opposed to it right now. I think I'm in favor of it. The reality is we don't have all the information. We're going to need to know. So I think the sooner you can get them to come in and do a presentation to the public, because Jason's right. The public has started to talk about it already. It's in Facebook. People need to know, and we're going to need to have the facts of how it's going to affect us. We don't have a choice if they choose to do it, but I think people need to know because it's going to be a really big hot topic. What you can put in front of the people is one of the questions of how can we use that money. I wanted to ask the question before when they were talking about the IT service. Do we have a town IT person?
no. Basically,
That sounds crazy.
Joe,
So
yeah.
let's put some money there because they're going to need it. Warehouse Point's going to need to double the size because they're going to be putting out all the fires. But I do think that there is a lot of information that you can put out in front of the public, and I do think there are things where people need to know what they will be able to control. We can't control whether it comes in or not, but we can control some of the other decisions on your rubber trolley is also going to, it's not just going to help the people in town get around town, it's going to get some of the potential people that we are worried about also coming into our town. I'm in favor of this right now because of where it is, and I think that you could put an exit and entrance ramp right off of 91, people never have to come into East Windsor, but we could still maybe get the tax benefit. So I think people need to know what they can and can't control when this, if and when this happens.
Okay. If you did have a presentation, like, probably, I'm thinking the high school auditorium might be a good place.
Yep.
And,
Probably the only one big enough.
yeah, any particular day of the week or time of day would be good, probably in the evening?
Evening.
Yeah.
It would be an evening and give people about 30 days notice because people with kids have trouble getting out the next, this night. So.
All right. I don't know if you can get 30 days, but now I think about it, Christmas is coming up, so it should be before the holidays
Before the
and after
holidays.
Thanksgiving. maybe.
So, I mean, I understand that, like we said, it has to get approved to even know that they can do this, but if we're gonna be in the running, I think the sooner we can get information, the better.
Good.
And if they're willing to present to us how they think it could work, things like the public safety. And I'd like to know what they're gonna pay for and what might ultimately have to come out of those tax dollars as far as beefing up security and safety. But one thing I did want to say is I completely agree with what you said, is that there's going to be a casino in Springfield that's going to bring an element here, and if it's in Windsor Locks, it's going to bring an element here whether we want it or not. I can't say this for sure, but my understanding is some of the drug problems we have, that's where it's coming from. It's coming from Springfield. So the problems are going to come in whether it's in town or not.
Jason.
Can I just add something to Mary's point? One of the things that we can control, and that it's going to be incumbent on actually Bob to negotiate, is the development agreement. And that's going to be a very important thing. Some of the timing of this stuff, and it's tough to put, not to put the cart before the horse, because the very first thing that needs to happen is they need to decide that they want to come here. And then the very second thing that needs to happen is they need to determine whether or not they can actually get the property. And then as those processes are moving forward, and those conversations are probably already happening, as those are moving forward, we should be making sure that we know what we want to include in a potential development agreement that will make it something that is a benefit to the community to have them here.
Paul.
Yeah, you mentioned having a meeting with them before the holidays. That's probably a mistake. If they gotta narrow this down to 2 locations, that'd be the earliest we want to hear from them. because then we would be an actual candidate. Right now, the information they could give us would be pretty sketchy, not much worth it, too much time spent for nothing. If we're actually a serious candidate, and they're seriously considering us, they're gonna want things from us, and we're gonna want things from them, and that's the time to do it, whenever that might be. And until the legislature gives them approval to do anything, it's not happening.
That's true, but I heard Mary too, and maybe, I'm thinking maybe two. Sir, I think information as soon as possible, just at least to get the thoughts going. And maybe, and you're right, once they get serious, then we really have a lot to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I hear Paul's point, I hear Mary's point. I think people are already talking. Even if they came in and said, this is the process that we have to go to make this decision.
Sure.
And then if the decision is East Windsor, this is kind of the general steps. I think even that, a presentation of that, gives people facts and a feeling of some level of control over what's going on, even though they kind of really don't. It's an illusion. But it kind of takes some of the guesswork out of things. It gives people a roadmap. They start to know what to expect. You're right. It'll be a lot shy on details, but I still think a preliminary meeting that would allow people to get that kind of bigger picture, just even to meet the people who want to bring this to our town, just to have that face-to-face might give people a little bit more comfort in the whole process. So I still think it's worth doing something sooner, and again later, for sure, with more detail.
Bob.
Bob Leach, 39 Church Street. In the end, the development agreement must be negotiated, and my big question is who would be doing the negotiating?
I would be involved. I think the Board of Selectmen would be involved, and this person, Mike Andriano, would be involved. He's a lawyer, and that's. I think we have to get input from a lot of people, like the police department and the fire departments and the school system and anybody else who voices an opinion, maybe human resources.
In brief discussion with our state rep, Chris Davis, he had mentioned an interest in being very involved in that.
I agree, yeah. Good point. Hey, Jim.
Is it my turn?
Your turn.
I just want to get back to the meeting here. There's a place on the agenda later on for public participation.
Yes.
We do have a lot of agenda items to cover. I would hope we could get back to the agenda and move on to this. I don't want to offend anybody. The casino's a great idea, but I think there's too much non-information that we don't know, and we need to move on with this meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
I like that. Anybody else want to say something? Okay, then we're moving on. So the next thing is the discussion of the 17-18 budget. And in your packet is a budget letter, and it's sent out every year on December 1st. This is something that I've worked on. I really took it almost verbatim from what the Board of Finance put out last year, changed a few things. I ran it by Geraldine Corso, and she said it looks good. So if you approve it, they can read it, the Board of Finance can approve it tomorrow, and we'll be ready to send it out to the departments and boards and commissions on December 1st. So any thoughts or?
Yeah, I got one.
Sure.
We need to add the word charter into the spell check, because unless you come from Seacoast, Maine, it's not chatter.
Chatter, okay.
And it's twice.
Yeah, okay.
picking on Rand and he isn't even in here to defend us.
Okay?
Yeah, Chatter's in here a couple times.
Yep, found it twice at least.
So in the past, we've actually outlined, and maybe this is more the purview of Board of Finance, but we've actually outlined parameters that we'd like people to try and live within. You know, a level services budget, or a 2% budget, or a no tax increase budget, or whatever the term du jour happens to have been. But there's nothing of that, and I don't know if that's an intentional omission or what, but I'm just saying, like, we have included some sort of actual guidelines for them in the past. This says that the town is anticipating no increase in state aid. Therefore, we need to ask each department or agency to be mindful of this while drafting their budget. I'm just saying we've been a little more specific in years past.
Not last year,
Okay.
okay? But you're right, I have seen years past. What I do is when the board, each department will put together their budget, but they, as it says in here, taking the taxpayers into account and what they need to provide the services they feel they need. And then myself and the department head and the treasurer sit down and go over it very closely. And we give to the Board of Selectmen the best budget we possibly can, what we feel is a very valid budget. You then will, obviously, you've been through this probably more than I have, we'll talk to each department head individually and go through each line item and can question each line item and try to reduce it in any way possible. So I think once we get through, the Board of Selectmen gets through with the budget, we'll be quite ready to give it to the Board of Finance to do the same thing with it. So I think we have a good process, and I don't see where putting a percentage in would actually serve much of a purpose.
Okay.
Okay.
It's fine to correct the spelling error.
Okay. I don't know if we need a motion or not.
Do we have to, do we really need? I mean, you
No,
know, basically it's the purview of the Board of Finance is gonna be the.
Yeah, but
Really?
we'll send it out. The Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance will send this out to the department heads. Okay, that's fine. And let's see what else we got here. The MOU. So, the Warehouse Point Fire District and the Board of Selectmen, and I signed it, came to an agreement last year, signed by Mike Ball, and it says here that if you're going to change the agreement, that you have to give 120 days notice, and so I think it's time we gave the 120 days notice so we can talk and get an agreement together for the next tax collection. One thing that I've gotten a lot of feedback from is it's too bad, Steve, oh, you are here. Tell us what problem you find with the...
For the tax collection, I keep hearing the 18%.
That's wrong, that was wrong on that.
Well, no, but I
You asked me a question, let me...
Yes, please, let's let him answer.
And this agreement's been in since August 1st to start collecting taxes for the Warehouse Point Fire District. Currently, every month goes by, we're still behind, right now as of this month, $4,800 behind collecting tax, which could have been either invested or spent someplace else that we're funding the Warehouse Point Fire District. We're in the hole.
Okay, and thank you. And what I wanted to say too is Steve's not the only one I've heard this from. And so I'd like to re-examine that particular one. Maybe we can do something to make it.
Did you hear it from the tax collector?
I have to, actually, she likes it. I think she likes the way it is.
Of course she does, because it's a win-win for you.
Yeah. But
Because she's making money.
I'd like to examine it. So I'd like to give you that, if we don't change a word, then we don't change a word. But I'd still like to at least have not have the deadline pass and have to live with what we have. I'd like to talk about it. Jim?
Jim Barton, 158 South Water Street. I'd like to address this. I've heard this over and over again, and it's just a non-issue that people want to make an issue of. It's a superb tax collection rate. Every town, every business like that has uncollectibles. In much greater percentage than that, $4,800 is such a low rate of uncollectible, it's ridiculous. But it's not uncollectible, it's not going away. And I've also heard from the tax collector that it's the same delinquent people all the time. And it eventually gets paid. It's the same way with the sewer fees, and it's part of the normal course of doing business. And to think that that $4,800 somehow is going to break the town after the district has paid the town $12,000 to collect these taxes and given up the 18%, not only 18%, $24 a year lien fees, $6 for preparation of a tax warrant if that becomes necessary, to gripe about this $4,800 is a real waste of time. And this deal is a good deal for both sides. It doesn't make, whoever doesn't want to do this deal, I'd like to hear a sensible reason for that, because there just isn't any.
I think, Jim?
Jim Richards, 27 Pleasant Street. My concern actually isn't about the 18%. It's the perception of this contract with the fire district. Last year, budgets didn't, people were saying, and I'm not saying the fire district said this, I'm saying the general population, I want to make that very clear, Jim. We're under the misconception that if the town budget failed, then the fire district tax would go away, which was not the truth. That's number one. Number two, when I went into the tax department to pay my taxes, if I was not someone that had been educated, been involved, I might think that the town is still part of that fire district. There was a sign up at one point. So my concern is not so much whether or not we do it, but the perception that we give to the community, because when it comes to budget time, it's very hard to pass a town budget if they believe that they're unhappy or happy with the fire district budget, that they believe that the non-passing or the passing of the town budget will affect that. And it needs to be made very clear to the population that it is two separate entities, that we as a town, if we're collecting the taxes, are being paid to perform a service that we could actually make money on if we collect the liens, as Jim Martin was saying, if we get that 18%. I'm not getting into that. I'm talking about the perception to the community and how it affects the passage of our town budget, more so than the rest of it. And I would be very, if we get into it, I would encourage the Board of Selectmen to go way out of their way to make sure people understand that that budget there is separate from the town budget. The town budget is not affected by it, nor are their budget affected by what we do on the town budget.
Okay, and I haven't heard anything from the selectmen, so, Jason.
So, first of all, I'm questioning whether the agreement says we have to give them notice that we're going to terminate the agreement or that we're going to negotiate the agreement.
Intent to, not to renew the agreement.
Okay, so that to me is a termination clause.
Well, no, if renewing the agreement, to me, it means maybe we need a legal opinion, but I think if I want to change any word in this agreement, then it's a different agreement.
So I have a different understanding of that, but regardless, I'll say that, I think that the situation that we're currently trying to work out is a complicated one. I think that were we as a town to stop providing that service to the Warehouse Point Fire District, we would be creating a considerable hardship in terms of redundancies, in terms of additional costs that would have to be borne. I don't, the collection rate is considerably good. it's a good collection rate, and it does mirror almost to the payer what the collection rate for the town taxes are. So I think this is it ain't broke, we don't need to fix it situation with this particular agreement. And I think we're rocking the boat and creating more angst without a good reason to do so.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right. And the only thing I was trying to read where it was here, it says that, somewhere in here, that on, do you have it? Okay, it says, on the on or before the 15th of each year, the town shall pay to the district 100% of the taxes billed to the district taxpayers, whether or not the town has received payment in full from each of such taxpayers. You could say 99%. That would be a tweak that I think, then that would take care of the, but I don't care. I don't
The 100% is what they need to operate.
So don't
We're
we.
cutting them off by their ankles by not being able to allow them to do their capital improvement financing. My idea is, this has worked. Our treasurer likes us. The fire department likes us. It works for everybody. That $4,800, hell, we've got 15 years to collect that. It'll stay on the books that long. And it's the same people. So it's not, we will get our money. We will.
Okay, Dick?
You know, every year the treasurer comes once or twice a year to abate taxes that are non-collected. And it's gonna continue. It's a small amount of money, but we too need 100%. We need a lot more than 100%. The budget gives us what we have to operate on. I was totally in favor of this thing last year because we monkeyed around too long, and it would have been impossible for them to get their ducks in a row in time. And in all fairness, you couldn't do it. Half a year is plenty of time. They're already paying a stipend to the tax collector for doing the job. I'm sure they can pick somebody up to do their taxes. I just don't like the town being brought into this. It's a separate entity, and it should remain separate. They want to be self-governing, which they chose, which is fine and dandy and legal. We had an ambulance association that did the same thing. You were on the board then too. What did we do? We ended up terminating. And that's the end of it. They're on their own, they're surviving, they're thriving. I don't see why we have
cutting them off
to, we
at the
have to
knees.
do, I'm sorry.
Okay, Steve, do you have anything?
I agree with what Dick's saying here.
Okay, that makes it tough. Jim?
The last selectmen's meeting, we talked about redundancy, and this is exactly what he wants to do right now. We talked about redundancy through the fire departments, both sides of town, which is what he was against, and that's exactly what he's doing now. He wants us to hire a tax collector, hire a full-time office person, which the district, the taxpayers in the district are gonna have to pay for. It's not, you guys are already doing the job. We just pay you to stipend to collect it for us. It doesn't make any sense. He's misinformation again, still. You guys need to think about this. I mean, this is even ridiculous that we're even talking about this. $4,800? Take it out of the fund balance. You got $1 million there.
There's one thing I can't figure out is all the time, nobody can tell me how much time they spent putting this together. I know Carol, Tim.
They tell the computer guy to add a line to the
Okay,
bill.
all right. This isn't public participation. Come on, Jim. Hey, let's stop it. You get public participation's coming up.
So before we call a vote, if we're going to do that, this seems to be one of those things where we're already doing it as best as we can. And if we were to, any changes that we would make to this are going to put a hardship on the people who live within the confines of that district. That doesn't seem like the right thing to do.
All right, and,
And why have a district?
That's the key.
okay, I think, yeah,
It's the whole key.
I guess what after listening to you, I brought it up, I thought it would be good to discuss it. It was good to discuss it. I think, I'm willing to let it be. And I guess we don't need a vote.
Absolutely, I think we should go on record.
If you want to vote?
Yep, I do.
Okay, well then make a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the MOU, the Warehouse Point District MOU as dated on 4/19/16, and we sign this for another year.
So the clause that he was talking about is an automatic renewal clause.
Right.
We have to do.
We have to do it anyways.
All we need to do is go on record and say we don't want to make any changes at this time, and it automatically renews.
Okay, what he said.
It's your motion, you can say whatever you want. I'm just saying that that clause was put in there on purpose so that we wouldn't have to have this discussion every year unless there was something substantially.
That we wanted to change.
Or something that they wanted to change.
So I would entertain a motion. What's the motion?
To accept the MOU as continuing from 4/19/16 with no changes.
Second.
All right, and discussion, further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed?
No.
And I'll break the tie. I say aye. Okay. Now what are we at?
Tax refund.
Tax refund.
Come on, Dale, you like to do this. This is a cheap one.
Okay, this is an easy one. I make a motion to approve the tax refunds dated November 10th, 2016, in the amount of $94.40.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, moving on to Selectmen comments and reports.
Nope, there's two added agenda items.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Two?
There were three.
You had a resolution, right? Well, three, the third one was moving out of order, right?
No.
No, the three that were added were the Melrose Bridge grant, the KKK resolution, and the Fire Protection Committee report.
Did we add that?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't, I don't think we did it.
Yes, because we wanted to vote on it.
Yeah, because it came after we fixed the agenda.
Because it means nothing.
Oh. All right.
It means absolutely nothing.
Okay, so we're doing a resolution.
Well, no, the Melrose Bridge, I think, was first.
No, we did that already.
You did that.
Did we? Okay.
That's why when you take them out of order, it gets messy.
Oh, don't it?
Okay, you got to take it.
So you got a resolution? Where is it?
You got the resolution.
So, everybody has probably seen the video and certainly has heard heard about the story, if not read the news stories. And as the police department continues to do the work that they need to do to determine whether or not there was actually illegal activity at the events of this past weekend, I thought that it was important for the town to actually put out a statement that kind of sums up that we are not a community that tolerates any type of hate demonstration. And so I drafted a resolution for consideration, and it says as follows. Whereas the town of East Windsor wholeheartedly commits to supporting inclusion of all citizens, regardless of age, gender, race, religion, or sexual orientation. Whereas the town of East Windsor fully and completely condemns any activity from any group that advocates hate, bigotry, xenophobia, or intolerance. Be it therefore resolved that the town of East Windsor affirms that no acts of hate, or persecution are welcomed in our town in any way at any time. So I would just move that for consideration.
I'll second that.
Good. Discussion?
Rather have a hard copy next time.
I did it on my phone.
I know. Print it out. God. Something like that, because there should be official hard copy to go with the record for that.
Sorry.
Because really, that doesn't, shows guys riding around on a motorcycle on a bonfire. You don't even know for sure it's in East Windsor, do you?
We know what the symbolism was intended to be.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, and I think the state police have verified it's East Windsor.
Okay, that's fine. Because there's been this at Stafford and Windsor Locks
Yeah.
and everywhere else.
I think it is.
Given the history that we have in town dating back to the 80s, and given the unrest that is happening, I think it's important for us to say that that is not appropriate.
And I agree that the sooner we say it, the better.
Oh, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
because I misspoke, I've been getting a lot of phone calls, and people have actually said that video caused fear to some people, and I can understand that. And so this would help allay that fear, and a lot of other people are very disappointed in the town. So I support this resolution. Okay, any further discussion?
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Good.
That's done.
Yeah.
No.
Now public, now,
No.
Selectmen reports. Jason, you're up.
Well, I gotta go. Well, it has certainly been an interesting couple of weeks. First, I want to congratulate everyone who was elected to office last week. I sincerely wish them the best of luck, because their success is our success. On Election Day, which was just last Tuesday, I spent about 11 hours standing at the polls, asking people what they wanted to see the town work towards in the next year. I thought I'd share some of those thoughts in the hopes that they may advise our agenda as a board for the next 12 months. Not surprisingly, I heard a lot about our schools. People want to see improvements there, but they also want to have confidence in the school district, and they want to see more transparency. This is something that came up a lot. People were concerned about taxes going up every year, but they also wanted to see infrastructure improvements, and they wanted to see the Warehouse Point Fire District reinstated into the budget. People were concerned about unaddressed blight, about streetlight outages, the speed at which development has happened, the need to examine regionalism opportunities, and the need to preserve our rural character. People spoke about their desire to see the Broadbrook Mill remediated, the need to invest in Broadbrook Center, reinstitution of middle school sports, support for universal pre-K, and the need for more stringent speed limit enforcement. People also talked about their support for the work done by our Human Services Department and about their fears and concerns regarding the heroin epidemic. We need to do something about these. I could go on and on about the conversations that happened last week. The bottom line is that there is work to be done, and I hope that these can be brought up for consideration for whatever the town can do over the next 12 months. Hopefully we can make some headway on some of these. Because of the election, I missed the Planning and Zoning Commission that was meeting the same night as the election. On Saturday, November 12th, I attended a Board of Education workshop where district staff, parents, and members of the community discussed the strategic plan for the district. All told, on a Saturday morning, about 50 people were there and discussed topics that included curriculum, infrastructure, communication, and other topics. Finally, as we've talked about already, I just wanted to comment on the video that surfaced on the internet regarding the events of the weekend. I've seen the news reports about the KKK incident that occurred in East Windsor. First, I wanted to thank the police department for the professional way that they handled that situation, especially Detective Sergeant Matt Carl. That is not an easy load to lift, and he did a great job. They are a professional organization. East Windsor is better than what we saw in that video. We are not a community that's bigoted, hateful, or xenophobic. There is no place for hate crimes that make people feel devalued, unwelcomed, or unsafe. I've knocked on thousands of doors in our town and have had the opportunity to get to know the families who are here. These families are why I've stayed. The type of behavior that happened this weekend is not who we are. We are a community that values inclusion, that values tolerance, compassion, and understanding. We are a caring place where anyone is welcomed. This weekend's event was not just the antics of people who are looking to blow off steam. It was a reminder to all of us that hate and bigotry are a part of the world that we live in, and that we need to renew our own commitment to each other and to ourselves, that we need to be a part of the solution that makes East Windsor, our state, and our country a better place. That's all.
Well done.
Just a question. You attended the strategic planning at...
On Saturday morning, yeah.
Is there going to be another session, or was that it?
Tonight.
Right. They had 3.
We finished tonight. We had
Okay.
a preliminary
Just, I'm
session. Saturday
apologize.
was the brainstorming session. And tonight we reviewed the draft plan. So the draft plan will now go to the Board of Education for approval.
Gail?
Saturday, the 5th, East Windsor Veterans Road Race started at 8 o'clock. The race was actually started at 10. I think, Jim, you said there were 320 people that participated in the race. It was a good showing. And
334.
334? Thank you. Monday, the 7th, Fire Commission at East Windsor Fire District. 2 bids are out for snow removal. They have 1 more they're waiting on. This year, the budget is $10,000 for snow removal and sand, Station 1 and 2. Discussion regarding the special act in 105. Old business, the oil tank was removed from Station 2, and a request for $3,000 to complete the roof project over the 3 bays. There were 38, of course, sneeze now. There were 38 calls last month. Discussion regarding a camera system at both stations will put out an RFP. They also stated that it will probably help reduce the insurance premiums. They had 2 substantial fires this past week. Sunday at 10:30, they had 20 guys show up because it was a Sunday night at 10:30. However, Abbey Road, that fire was on a Monday. It was when people were at work anyways, and they only had 2 guys there. Their idea is that the Warehouse Point Fire District needs to invest in manpower. I think we find that all over because people are not in town during the day. Upcoming events. 11/19, Abby's Helping Hand Brunch at Manili's Banquet. Doors open at 10 o'clock to 2. And 11/26 is Shop Small Businesses. Please support your local shops in town. They'll appreciate it. That's it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Inland Wetlands on the 2nd of November, very quick meeting. They did a brief discussion on review of the bylaws. They made no changes at this point. It'll be ongoing. The old business, they had Crane Properties. That was the old Wilson Trucking Terminal up there by Sophia's. To fill a drainage ditch and pipe it and do some other structural work, including hook up to the sanitary sewers. They made an extensive presentation for the water flows and all the rest of it, and this was approved unanimously. East Windsor Historic Preservation Commission on the 10th of this month. They didn't have a quorum, so they really couldn't do much. The Melrose sign was discussed. They do have copies of the payment for the town for said sign, and it seems to be going nowhere. They're going to, future projects, they're going to send out a list of the historical sites in town and on any grants available for historic preservation. Yeah, Jason, I did make this out. Really not much at the zoning. Either the Bacher Corporation had to come in for a special use permit for next to Town and Country Motors, that vacant field, to put up a new building. They're going to move out of the industrial park and move there. After a discussion, this was approved. And they also have a little list of projects they want to do with 17 items on it. Sign regulations, Jim left already? And food trucks, granny pods, which I never heard of, but it's something I guess you can rent a little building and attach it temporarily to your house for your aged parents like me. And when they go, the building goes. It's something new. Other just regulations, Warehouse Point Village regulations and guidelines. They spent all of that time and research on it, now they want to develop it. And a few other things, but that's about the extent of that. And the only other comment I had is this town video going on, I think that's a little misnomer. It's a solicitation to buy a website for big money and under the guise of the town. And I was very, very unhappy with it, and I reamed Jim Richards pretty good about it, maybe too much so. But I really don't appreciate these backdoor scams like that. I really was very unhappy with that. I'm ashamed you gave him a letter of endorsement. But I'll leave it at that. Needless to say, we didn't write a check.
Good. Okay, Steve.
Not much, like I never do. But I did cancel the zoning board of appeals because I see zoning is approving everything. So that'll make us look good with anybody that wants to come to town if we continue that road, you know. And I just want to say I'm glad everybody got out and voted. Everybody that got up the next morning was in shock, I think. Even me, but that's all I gotta say. All I said was I knew it was gonna be a surprise.
Okay, and I don't have anything to contribute, so Selectmen reports and comments are over. So now we have public participation. Paul.
So at the November 1st meeting, I inquired about our view permit software and its status, and I noticed that virtually all the towns that have purchased this, that are part of CROG, are on the list of towns that have it, but we're not.
We're not on the list of towns that have it?
We have not implemented it to the intent of it, therefore, we're not on the list. So if you go to CROG, we're not one of the towns that has view permit up and running.
And what we don't have is it online for contractors to enter their information. They have to come in and, yeah, I agree with you.
Whatever. All I know is it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we're not getting much out of it.
I agree with that too, but I'm aware of that. It's tough to do.
I'll bring it up to the next meeting.
Good.
Figured you would.
Pretty soon we'll get it on the agenda again.
Maybe so.
Gil.
Gil Hayes, 143 Rice Street, where the good water is. I'm gonna sit in John's chair if you don't mind. I just want a few comments on the incident that happened over at the pits this weekend. I sit on the board of, the police commission, and for the last 4 months, we've been having that area under surveillance because of the nuisance of the ATVs and the dirt bikes that were gathering there. So this is not anything new. The only thing new is the guy with the hood on this past weekend. Now, if I know Bob said he had misspoken, he apologized, but he didn't make excuses for what he said when he said it. I happen to know that the reporters came in and asked if he had heard anything of the news from Stafford. And then, of course, Bob was waiting to hear, and then they said, well, how about this video? And took it right away. Bob says, well, knowing what we went through for the last 4 months with this same situation out there, Bob came out with that statement that he said, and he's been bashed on the social media ever since. Now, I've served on I've been here for 40 years and served on the boards of finance boards of selectmen, police commission. And I cannot even count on my hand after 20 years of public service, how many racial problems that people have come to me about, because you folks might say I have a pretty nice tan, but I have African American heritage. So some people would come to me in regards to those problems, and I know of 3, and discussed it and taken it to the proper authorities, and it was resolved. So that's, 20 years, that's a pretty short track record of complaints. The only thing that I would like to say that sitting on the Board of Selectmen, and we had a good board when I was there, there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 members in this building right now that was on it. And people thought it was a positive board. And if I was to sit in Bob's chair right now, and I look down the aisle, I would like to help me get through the years, Mr. Bowser, who's he went through poli-sci at Fairfield?
Sacred Heart.
Sacred Heart in Fairfield.
Yeah, they said so.
Right. And I would depend on him, so I'd just like to say to the board, and you've asked, what can you do in the future? I would say, help Bob out, teach him, because he's got a lot to learn. Bobby got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Right, and we had such a great Board of Selectmen. I'm not gonna say led by Denise, but she sort of kept control, and it was a great time here. And you guys could have fun. The thing that we did not have, and I don't see it here, I've heard, but I don't see it here, is disrespect for each other. I don't see it on this board, but I just want to, thank you for serving. I know what kind of job it is. And Denise, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll just follow up just a little, because you gave me the opening, and I'll say it. What happened, when I did misspoke, and I apologize for it, I said the wrong things. I didn't express myself well, but this reporter came in, and I really didn't know what was going on. And she says, could you tell us how you feel about having a Ku Klux Klan rally in your town? That was her question. And I said, I haven't seen the video. And so she showed me the video. And I said, and I saw this guy riding around on a motorcycle dressed as a Ku Klux Klan member, and the guy in the back with the flag. And I said, that's a guy driving around a bonfire, dressed as a Ku Klux Klan guy. Nobody else has Ku Klux. That's not a Ku Klux Klan rally. And then we got into talking about it. And what I should have said, and what I got hammered for, was, well, I said, eventually I said, that's kids being kids, but because I knew what goes on in there. It really was young adults, early 20s. But I should have said immediately, that's racial prejudice right there, and that's not tolerated in East Windsor. I made that mistake. I'll learn from it. When I speak to the press, I'm going to
just to reiterate what
be very careful.
I've played golf with Bob and before I got my leg cut off. Anyway, I played golf with Bob.
Good for you.
He'd still beat you.
Right. I don't consider Bob, no one called him a racist, but I don't consider him anywhere close to that, because he's never asked me.
He's never asked you what?
Caddy.
Let me write that down.
Hey, you caddy for you, Bill.
Yes.
So, first of all, thank you, because I
Name?
didn't hear what the town had to say about this whole thing, and I was wondering, and I was Jason.
Excuse me, we need your name, please, for the recording secretary.
I'm sorry, I thought
I'm
I
sorry.
introduced myself earlier, she was.
Well, she may not get it
I
again.
apologize.
It's a difficult job.
Unfortunately, I don't get to come to meetings often. I should be home getting my kids in bed, but it just seemed like an important thing to do today. So I did want to kind of find out what the town was going to do officially about the kids in this town. If that was kids being kids, and kids are obviously learning bad lessons from adults, if that's the type of joke that they think that they're going to pull. But these pits, I don't know exactly where these pits are. I think if it's, I have to ask Jason this question, if that's the same piece of property that they wanted to use for the gun range. And kids are hanging out there. I believe 3 years ago, a girl lost her life in an ATV accident. So clearly, this piece of property is a problem.
Yes,
And if I could just finish, I thought, and I don't remember this for sure, but I thought that when we had all the discussions of the gun range, there was discussion of whether or not the town could purchase the property and do something with it. And I'd like to know if that is something that will be revisited, because clearly this piece of property is a problem, and that's why I said I'm very glad to hear that there's some monitoring going on. My address again, 2 Napoleon Drive, it's a brand new road, but it's off of a very old road in town, Dempsey Road, which is, as far as I know, a dead end, with possibly 3 residences back there, but the amount of traffic that I see, the pickup trucks with the ATVs, the motorcycles going by, clearly those are not people who live back there. So they're using my side yard for the most part to get there. It does get noisy. That was one of the comments I made on Facebook. Somebody said there's so much noise, why don't you complain? I've brought it up, it just seems like it'd be too hard to do unless you physically put a police car there. I mean, it is a town road up to a certain point, and do some traffic stops and ask people, like, why do you come through here? It's a dead end, it should be private property. But I think that's where people are getting in, and I think that's a way to stop it. But I don't know that for sure. So
Well, it's a huge problem, and what I was gonna say, where they were gonna put the gun range is just part of the, they call it the pits because there's more than one. It runs from Apothecary to Plantation, and Wapping is kind of, makes a side of it too, and it has huge expanse, and I appreciate the work of the police department and the police commissions, because they're starting to look into it. It's a very tough problem, and actually, there's so many ways. If you're just a local rider, you could come in, there's 60 or 70 ways all around. And they come up the tracks too, from South Windsor and down from Enfield.
East Hartford.
Yeah, and but sometimes they're being trucked in actually from Springfield and Hartford and Bristol, and they've gotten
All the way from Danbury.
Okay.
Oh, further than that, it's been from New Jersey.
They've gotten sophisticated too. They rent sometimes, I guess, and I've told, I haven't seen it, U-Haul trucks, and they'll come in with several ATVs and motorcycles on the back, and when nobody's looking, they'll just stop the truck, they unload, they drive away at the truck, and they go into the pits. Hard to catch them in the pits. The police have mentioned that the state might come in on occasion, rarely, once, and try to contain what's going on there, but it's a problem. And the noise, many residents complain about the noise, and so it's definitely a problem, and maybe with this incident, it might heighten the awareness and the policing of it. There's a lot to be said.
If you know of, see any of these people doing that, if you call the police department on a routine number and let the dispatcher know, I'm sure they're going to take action if they can. License numbers would be great. Vehicle descriptions, anything you can give them, because when people do that, the police magically respond, and you know, they do try to take care of those.
Well, I think one of the questions is that's private property, so do we really have a right to stop them? But
They're unregistered vehicles.
Okay, the police commission, Bob?
Speaking to that, it is a complicated issue because there's actually quite a few people that do ride here that do have written permission. So you can't, there's nothing you can do. This has been an ongoing situation for years. One of our officers, and I believe it's Officer Lee, has made it his little project to keep it as clean as possible and try to do whatever he can. Very dedicated to doing that. So the other issue too is that people are complaining about this video, thinking that it's all kids from East Windsor. It's not. I would hesitate to say that it's probably mostly people that are not from East Windsor.
we don't really know, do we?
No, we don't, but our police department is investigated. They have identified quite a few of the people there, so let them do their job and do their work, and they'll get to the bottom of it.
I understand that area that they're trying to police for all of these ATVs is like 500 acres?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge, huge property. And once they find where they were partying in one area, they just move.
I think that's why my question was, what is the access to this area?
It's everywhere. Everywhere.
My road might be one of them. But
Yep.
That's just a small area.
by Wapping, and they come from all around, and they drive down our streets from South Windsor so they're coming from everywhere. And if you've ever been in that property, it looks like a moonscape. It's gigantic cliffs and
Scary.
big gigantic valleys, gullies. I would be afraid to ride in there, but it's what the kids like. So we hear the noise, and I'm all the way at the other end of town. So it is a huge property and a huge problem.
Just an FYI, in my, many, many years ago, I used to buy there. And I had a lot of great fun too, so. But we didn't carry on as they do these days.
Or at least it didn't make it on the
That I can
social
admit
media.
to.
We are being taped.
Yeah, remember that. Good point.
Okay. Yes.
Bill Lowe's, Melrose Road. I had a couple of fire inspectors from Hamilton Standard stop at the station in Broadbrook the other day. They told me that the property there that they inspected, the Broadbrook Mill property, that the town garage that they have down there, the large garage, they're going to take that down. And the fire department maybe burn that down as a part of the practice we have. The other thing is, they told me that the mill apartments down there, there's so much mold in there that they don't know what they're going to do with those. So they said they probably have to get the mill stones to those. So in 8 years, we haven't done anything with that property down there, and it's just going to pot. Before, we were going to put the town hall down there one time, and the seniors and everything else down there, but right now, I think everything is pretty well shot down there. And so their inspections are being done, and they told me that Hamilton Standard now is taken over from the...
Econ?
Yes.
Really?
They've taken over from that.
Maybe we'll get something done.
That'd be nice.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathy?
I heard you mention signage is something the planning and zoning is going to talk about.
Yep.
And I've heard recently, I didn't realize this particular rule existed, that you can't have your business hours on your sign. That just seemed really counterintuitive to me.
I don't think so. They can regulate size, but not content.
I was told that the Broadbrook Library sign was against regulations because it has the hours on it.
No, I think
I
it's
don't think
oversized.
so. Maybe oversized.
Okay, good, that sounds better.
Because this discussion has come up many times at the zoning, and this is part of the issue. They cannot regulate content of the sign.
Right.
So
Well,
if
not
you're
having hours
if you're
would
gonna
make
run
zero
a rally
sense
that
whatsoever.
is very offensive in town, you have the exact same right as the fire department has when they're running a bake sale to put a sign up. And that's where the problem comes in. And that's been to the Supreme Court, unfortunately, and that's what they ruled. So you cannot regulate content of the sign, only size. I suppose you could regulate color and height and
Location.
content, they cannot, yeah, location.
Okay.
So that would not be part of the problem.
Glad to hear it, because that just didn't make any sense whatsoever.
I wouldn't think so.
Broadbrook Library, don't worry about that sign.
It's a nice thing.
It is.
Okay, any more public participation?
No? Good.
Okay.
Make a motion to go?
Yeah.
Got it? Make a motion to go into executive session.
Let's go.
Second?
Pursue, okay, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye, after a minute.
After we...
That's great.
Wow, so much more. That's the water.